and even more stuff, but still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed, and they're the stuff inside your stuff, even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs, and it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth partying with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Dear John, I was hoping it wouldn't come to this, but you've left me no choice. I'm leaving. Uncontrolled high blood pressure is really serious, and lately you seem to really not care. I've been there for you since day one, and I know you think I'm going to keep ticking. But no, my friend, I can quit whenever I want. Why can't we get back to the good times, when we were more active and ate more healthy foods, and you checked on me every once in a while? Is that too much to ask? I don't want to leave, but unless you stop ignoring me, what else am I supposed to do? Remember, when I quit, you quit. Sincerely, your heart.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you. Doing the minimum to control your high blood pressure isn't doing enough. High blood pressure can lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get your blood pressure to a healthy range before it's too late. Find out how at heart.org/blood pressure. Check, change, control. A message from the American Heart Association, the American Stroke Association, and the Ad Council.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Jason Derulo. I love that music connects to people all over the country. But unfortunately, so does something else. Childhood hunger. 15 million kids struggle with hunger right here in America. And yet, every year, billions of pounds of surplus food in the U.S. go to waste instead of going to the children in need. Feeding America is working to change this. The Feeding America nationwide network of food banks rescues this surplus of food to help provide meals to families in virtually every community in the United States, including yours. But they just can't do this alone. Join me in the fight against hunger in America. For more information on what you can do to get involved, visit feedingamerica.org. That's feedingamerica.org. Together we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America. A message from Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Hey everyone. Let's all stop what we're doing right now and take a moment. That felt good, huh? Just like that, we had a nice special sort of moment together. Of course, they don't all need to be quiet moments to be special. They could be loud moments, goofy moments, sporty moments, dorky moments. Moments where we talk or walk or just hang out. It doesn't really matter. They all count. Because every time dads like us take a moment like that to spend with our kids, well, it's pretty momentous. Sounds like somebody agrees. So let's take a moment to make a moment. Today, call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Music is a bridge between the material and the spiritual. My name is Harvey Lauer, and I'm 82. As a blind person, you have to be aware that nobody can tell you what you can or can't do. You really have to try things. My folks got me a little radio in 1940, and that was the best Christmas present I ever got. When I was 11 years old is when I started to play music, play the piano, and then the accordion, and then the cello. My wife, who was also blind, was a good cook. When she died, that's when I started Meals on Wheels. America, let's do lunch.
It's Meals on Wheels. 1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama, I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply STOP to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge.
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve. It's now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend.
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is you over 30 years ago.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
And this is your mom when you drive her back from therapy.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
Roles change without us noticing, and in your new role, we help you help. AARP gives you the information to help care for your mom so that you can have patience with her, just like she did with you. Visit aarp.org/caregiving or call 1-877-333-5885 to get practical health and wellness tips to provide even better care for your loved one.
Are we there yet?
Remember, visit aarp.org/caregiving. AARP, we help you help. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
When I was little, I didn't talk for a long time. I liked things to always be the same. Anything new or different would scare and upset me. I was very sensitive to lights and sounds. It was almost like I had bigger eyes and ears than everyone else. So I built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. I didn't like looking people in the eye. It made me feel uncomfortable. I'd throw big tantrums over little things like when my socks didn't match. Sometimes I'd do the same things over and over. Until one day, I found out I had autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I learned how to live with it better.
You can see signs of autism in children as young as 18 months. Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
What are you talking about?
No, it's not him. There's only one more. There is only one more. That's it. One more. Get arrested! No!
They saw your team put up zero effort.
Wake up!
Remember in the old days, they used to have oxygen for them. Where's the oxygen?
Play like absolute just garbage.
This is the Sports Loudmouth.
Yay!
Man, can you keep it down? I'm trying to introduce here. With Errol Marks and Speedy Beatty.
You're not even a has-been. You're a never was. You're a never was.
June 8th, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to a new show of the Sports Loudmouths. 631-672
3108 is the number. You can go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Sports Loudmouths, which airs every single Wednesdays at 7 p.m., Thursdays at 9 p.m. Great shows, great content, and yes, great guest. Listen to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network throughout the week. And guys, please, if you miss any of the shows, go to Apple Podcasts. You check out the 1.6 million downloads. You interact by writing to us all over Apple Podcasts, and we'll answer all your questions. You can also reach out to us on our website. All our email addresses are on there as well. www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Speedy, what's up, man?
Trying to find the survive.
What's up, man?
Trying to survive the final possibly 2-3 days of this wildfire residue, whatever we're going through here in New York.
Yes.
As our friend Tim Roy mentioned yesterday, first time for us, or maybe a once in a lifetime, a once in a decade type thing for us, but a norm on the West Coast. But trying to survive the remaining end of it, I know it's tough on you, but we have some baseball games at least.
Yeah, well, it's been tough on me. I mean, the people on the roads, they think the world's going to end. They see smoke in the air. We all know it's coming from the wildfires over there in Canada, and everybody thinks the world's going to end. Oh my God, this is the end of the world. I say, this has happened before in California. This is the first time it's really happened over here in a very long time, and nobody is used to something like this. And being that it's so dark so early throughout the day because of the smoke, everybody's crying about it. So for all the people out there that think the world's going to end, it's probably not. So just calm down. When the earth starts to split and we start to sink, then I would say, and we see monsoons and tsunamis, then I could say the world is going to end. But for right now, we are still alive. There are no volcanic interruptions here in Long Island. We haven't seen any volcanoes or any of that stuff like Hawaii. So I think we're good, Speedy. I think we're good.
Well, there's no monsoons, tsunamis, or volcanoes in Kyrie Irving's Earth.
Well, again, Kyrie thinks the world is flat. So maybe he does. I mean, maybe there are mountains all over the world or volcanoes that built the world because, hey, he doesn't believe there's a galaxy. So, I mean, that guy is just out of his damn mind. I don't know how to argue any points on protecting Kyrie Irving, offset on what he has come out and said on social media, quote unquote, or any podcast he's been on. The guy's out of his mind. But nevertheless, we have a great show lined up for you guys. At 9:30, we'll be talking to ClutchPoints National NBA insider reporter Brett Siegel. He's been on our show before, I think twice. Mm-hmm. This will be the third time he's going to be on the show. Brett hasn't been on the show since COVID. So a lot of basketball insiders we've had on this week, and they've been fantastic. Well, basketball guys, broadcasters, and now insiders. So, and at 10 o'clock, we'll be talking to New York Post feature reporter Alex Mitchell, Yankees, Islanders fan. We've had him on. I think we've had him on the show.
Yeah, we had him on right around when Judge won MVP.
Yes, I remember him coming on the show. And he recently interviewed Aljamain Sterling, the MMA champion, Ray Longo, and Matt Serra. So for all those people out there that absolutely like Longo and Serra's gym, and it's been a huge follower of the Serra gym. I actually fought and trained in his gym for a year. Didn't like him very, very much, and I left. So Matt Serra and me are not. I'm not going to take shots at Matt because I think Matt is a good guy. I think he's one of the great mixed martial artists, Brazilian jiu-jitsu guys that come out of Long Island. But I think he thinks very highly of himself, and I'm not a big fan of him. So
Snug, I reached out to Anchorage, man. He did not respond.
Yeah, so we'll get into the Chris Paul situation as he was waived by the Suns yesterday. Damian Lillard says he will be willing to be traded to the Nets or the Heat. Why would he want to go to the Nets? Does he really want to play with Ben Simmons? I mean, I know there were stories coming out that Portland did and was interested in Ben Simmons when he was available. It didn't happen because they didn't want to trade any of their big pieces or young pieces away to add Ben Simmons, and thank God they didn't. Dalvin Cook will be cut by the Vikings if they can't trade him
by tonight. So it doesn't look like he's going to be traded, and it looks like he'll be heading to Miami. That's where I believe he's going. I don't think he's going to Buffalo. He's not going to the Jets. I know a lot of people are sitting there saying, oh, we bring him in. Him and Breece Hall, they would be dominant. There's no way the Jets, I know there's stories coming out that the Jets are interested. They're only driving up the price for Miami. That's all they're doing. They want Miami to know that they're interested, so they ought to jump and pounce on him and pay him what he wants. Because if they don't and he becomes available, there's an opportunity. I think Derrick Henry makes a lot of sense to Buffalo.
Yes.
I think that makes a tremendous amount of sense. If Buffalo's willing to trade a third-round draft pick, I think that possibly could happen. And I think before the season starts, we're going to see Derrick Henry in another jersey. I do believe that. Yankees place Aaron Judge and Nestor Cortez on the injured reserve list. I'm not worried about this. I'm really not. Nestor has had shoulder strains really since last season. I think the Yankees got to be careful with Nestor. The one guy I'm not worried about is Aaron Judge. He hurt his foot. He dived into a wall. He broke through a wall. I just think the Yankees are trying to protect him as long as they possibly can, because as they make the run in the second half of the season, they're going to need him. So they're going to make sure that their star is going to be healthy throughout the second half of the season. Pete Alonso leaves yesterday's game with a wrist injury. I think he's going to be fine. His MRI and his x-rays came out negative. So I think it'll be day to day. If they want to put him on a 10-day injured list, it really doesn't matter. They could do that, but and they could bring somebody up, a young player up, to fill in his spot. That would make a little bit more sense instead of letting him sit on the bench and take up a roster spot. But we know Buck Showalter hasn't been very smart over the last couple of weeks, so he might be that dumb. So I don't know. Several NHL players requested trades. The Jets center Pierre Luc-Dubois.
Nice.
Okay, you like that? Senators winger Alex DeBrincat. Yep. He wants to be traded, and Flyers goalie Carter Hart, which we've been hearing, he wants to go to a Canadian team. So Edmonton is looking for a star young goaltender. Why not Carter Hart? I love Carter Hart. I think he's going to be a star in this league. Philadelphia hasn't really done the right things for him. His development, this guy, when he came into the league, he lit the league on fire. And then all of a sudden, in the past year, this year he played better. He did play better this year.
Yeah, it was 2 years before that were really bad.
But the 2 years before that, I mean, horrible. And has a lot to do with coaching and the development of the kid, but I think he's a fantastic talent. NBA Finals and Stanley Cup updates. Bracket war matchup tonight. The number 11 seed, Cristiano Ronaldo, versus the number 6 seed, Roger Federer. That's a pretty good duel. And the number 9 seed, LeBron James, versus the number 8 seed, Bobby Orr. That is interesting, too. Those are two really good combinations. So what is he saying over here? Alex Jabroni? I've never heard of him. Is that a real guy? I don't know.
The name sounds familiar.
No, there's no Alex Jabroni. He's being an idiot. I mean, jabroni is something that obviously The Rock used to say, in the WWE. He used to say, "What up, jabroni?" or some crazy, stupid stuff. Anyways.
I know Damian Lillard is not going to Sacramento.
Bleacher Reports, Chris Haynes reports that the Suns officially waived Chris Paul on Wednesday. Chris Paul had a base salary of $30.8 million, but only $15.8 million is guaranteed this season. That 15.8 would have been guaranteed on June 28th if the Suns didn't waive him. Paul averaged 13.9 points per game, 8.9 assists per game, and 4.3 rebounds per game last season. Paul had a 44% field goal percentage and a 37.5 three-point percentage and an 83.1 free throw percentage last season. Last season, Paul only played 59 games in the regular season and got injured again in the playoffs in the Suns' second-round series versus the Nuggets, which cost them an opportunity to go all the way to the NBA Finals. I'm going to say this very, very nicely. I think Chris Paul in the last 20 years has been the best point guard in the NBA. All around. Obviously, the last couple of years, he hasn't been the best point guard. But in his career, he's been in the league for almost 20 years. Chris Paul has been the best point guard, all-around point guard in the NBA. And anybody that wants to argue that, you don't know basketball. Now, everybody's going to say, hey, he's never won a championship. Go look at the teams he's played for. Now, the Clippers, everybody says, oh, look at the Clippers. They could have won a championship. Lob City was never going to win a championship because Doc Rivers was the head coach of that team. Everywhere Chris Paul went, he made everybody better. He went to OKC. He made them a playoff team. He went to the Clippers. He made them a playoff team. He went to the Rockets. He made them a playoff and a contender team. He could never get over the hump because the guy can't stay healthy for 82 games. Now, I know what everybody's going to say. Health is very important. It's a very important aspect to a player. And his growth and his ability to stay on the court. Chris Paul defined the game of basketball, obviously because of his size. Look at the size of Chris Paul. When you look at Steph Curry, everybody was questioning if Steph Curry was going to survive in the NBA because he was 6'3". And he looked smaller because of his body, his body weight and the way he came into the NBA. He was a stick figure. Chris Paul came into the NBA. At best, Chris Paul's 6 foot. At best. What made Chris Paul special and what makes Chris Paul special is he's one of the best leaders in the NBA. And he's one of the best overall passers we've ever seen in this league. He makes everybody around him better. Now, there are teams right now, the LA Lakers being one of them. LeBron wants to, if he wants to stay there for one more year and somehow they can maneuver maybe D'Angelo Russell's contract. Maybe they keep D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Davis and LeBron James. And maybe you bring in Chris Paul, $5 million, the veterans minimal. Because he wants to win a championship. LeBron and Chris Paul are best friends. They really are. As a matter of fact, Chris Paul is LeBron's, I think Bronny's godfather. So you sit here and you look at what suggestions are the Suns going to give Chris Paul as he goes through waivers, and he looks like he is going through waivers. I don't think anybody's going to sign him because nobody wants to pay him $30.8 million. He's going to get through the waivers, and then the Suns are going to go back to him and say, "Where do you want to go?" They're not bringing him back. Because right now, you bring Chris Paul back, you're going into a season with two aged guys. Kevin Durant, who's making a ton of money, who last year only played 60 games or 59 games. Chris Paul only played 50-some-odd games last year, 59. You cannot go into the season with two old veterans. Yes, they're great players. Kevin Durant is still an elite player. Chris Paul, he's not the scorer he once was, but he was never a big scorer in the NBA. I think the highest season that he had of points was like 20 or 21. He's not a point guy, but he does everything right. He defends multiple positions. He could defend anybody at the point position. He can give you 14, 15 points a game. He's going to give you 9 to 10 assists a game. He's going to give you 4 to 5 rebounds for a guy his size. And he's going to give you leadership. So when you hear this and you wonder, where are the Suns? I think the window for the Suns is closed. They're not winning. They're not. And Devin Booker is going to notice that moving forward throughout next season. And if I were the Knicks, I don't make any drastic moves this offseason. I wouldn't. And there's a lot of reasons why. And I know everybody's going to say, well, you're a Knicks fan. If you don't even want to say the Knicks, the Chicago Bulls, the San Antonio Spurs, The San Antonio Spurs can set themselves up right now. They get the number 1 pick in the draft, arguably the greatest prospect to ever come out of the draft. They have money to spend. You have Giannis that could be an unrestricted free agent. He got opted out of his contract next year. Zach LaVine could be tossed around. He could go there. There's so many guys that could be available next offseason, and Devin Booker could be one of them. Why would Devin Booker want to stay in Phoenix? He's been there since his rookie season. He was drafted by the Phoenix Suns. He's developed in Phoenix. He's never won. He's played in 1 NBA Finals. 1. And again, that NBA Finals, Chris Paul wasn't healthy. So it was all on him. That's why they brought Kevin Durant in. They extended DeAndre Ayton's contract. They gave him an extension, which probably cost him somebody at the trade deadline this past season. And I'm not talking about Kevin Durant. They gave up a lot for Kevin Durant. They gave up their future. And I think the Nets are going to benefit off that trade more than anything. Because once the Phoenix Suns know that this window is over and Devin Booker wants out, they're going to suck for like 5-6 seasons. And you know who gets those picks? The Nets. They win. So I sit here and I look at the factors of Chris Paul being waived. And listen, it's probably Jeff who is going to probably, spit something out that I'm not going to like. But nevertheless, I'm waiting for it. You're looking at this story. There are quite a few amount of teams that he can go to. Honestly, even the Celtics. The Celtics need a point guard. He is not going to be expensive. He could play with Tatum. He could play with Brown. He won't have to play consecutively every single night because they have Brogdon there. Maybe they move smart. They could do that in the offseason.
They'll probably have to.
They can move smart. Somebody will take him because he's a shutdown defender at the point guard position or the guard position. So let's put him in. Jeff, what's up, bud?
He's not going to the Celtics. He's not. If you think
I just mentioned the Celtics because they've talked about their point guard position. That's it.
Right. Well, they have 3 point guards. One of them last year was the defensive.
We all know. Yes. And this year was the
sixth
sixth man of the
team
year.
all defense this year. So you think Chris Paul's coming in to be better defensively? I doubt it.
No, but he can give you the leadership that maybe that Boston Celtic team needs on the court.
Well, right, but then he would also have to be on the court, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if I remember correctly last night, one of your arguments, and I realize I'm going to cross sports, but this isn't about cross.
Go ahead, bring it in. Let's go.
Your whole thing last night was Scherzer and Verlander was, wow, they're always hurt.
Uh-huh.
Oh, they're always, well, so is Chris Paul. Well, like every time
I just mentioned that,
hurt,
Jeff. Are you...
Right, he's always hurt.
Yeah.
So no one wants him because he hasn't won shit, and he's always hurt, and he's overrated. I do not believe he's overrated. Every team he's gone to, he's made those teams better. You just can't stay healthy for the full season, and then when they get into the playoffs, he is so hurt. He has an ankle problem, a foot injury. He's had plantar fasciitis. How many times? The guy can't stay healthy. Plantar fasciitis never goes away.
Yeah, I know that, but he's had it a ton of times. He had it with Houston. That's why he was out for the Houston series against Golden State when they were up 3-2. That was plantar fasciitis. Okay.
I thought that was the hamstring.
No, it was
a combination.
It was
of
a
both.
combination of both. But that he was saying that he could have played with the hamstring. It was plantar fasciitis that was bothering him.
If it was just the hamstring, he would have played Game 7.
I think so too. But I remember it was plantar fasciitis, and he's had that problem for years. And we've seen a lot of NBA players have that problem. It never goes away. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George has had it quite a few times. It's definitely an injury that just never goes away.
But this is what's funny about the whole thing is why would anybody want to take on a player like that who's always, what's the best ability, Speedy?
Availability.
Yeah, but here's the thing. If you could get...
Why would a team, since you're the one that brought up the Celtics,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
And that's fair. So we'll use them as an
Mhm.
Why would a team give up second? Because you're going to have to give up either Brogdon, White, or Smart to fit him in. You're going to have to. Right?
Okay.
So why would a team give up a defensive player of the year 2 years ago, a second team all defense this year in Derek White, and Malcolm Brogdon, who is the sixth man of the year, for a guy who has a history very much of not being there?
Because they couldn't win with those guys. That's why. Boston wants to win right now. Jaylen Brown is going to be a free agent. If he comes back next year, unless they trade him, Jaylen Brown has one more year. They can re-sign him or they're going to move him. He's going to want a supermax contract worth about $295. Tatum is also going to be up for a contract too, worth over $300 million.
Right,
so
right,
hold on. So right now, where the team is, they're a win now team. And to bring in Chris Paul, a leader, a guy that can absolutely be the voice of reason on the court, which they had problems against Miami. Let's be honest. They didn't have a voice of reason on the court. They didn't.
Well, very much their biggest problem was
we know.
Both
Yes,
people
Jason
were banged
Tatum.
up,
Yes,
and Game 7 was very much decided on the first play of the game. And you even agreed
yes,
with me. You were like,
yes. Jason Tatum not being 100% healthy in that game. Yes,
but
absolutely.
both of these guys are still so young, so it's not would they have to win now or the window's closing? Both of these guys are like 25 years old, which is still super young.
Mhm.
It's not like win now mode or it's never going to happen. Like with the Lakers with LeBron, who's 38 or 9, or you'll know.
Yeah, 38.
But he's old, right? So it's not like that kind of situation at all. And why would you jettison one of those really good players for a guy that's always hurt when your argument is guys that get hurt stink? Verlander, Scherzer. Your words, not mine.
First of all, my words in different sports, okay? Sports, every single sport is
so when
different.
you change the sport and someone can't play because they're hurt, they're much
Jeff, it's a different sport. It's a different sport. Baseball is different than hockey. Hockey is different from basketball. Basketball is different from football.
Right, missing time is missing time. That's just what it is, dude. If you're not there and you're not able to play.
Jeff, you're going to tell me if you have a bench. Now, the Knicks this year had a significant amount of injuries in the second half of the season, but they have a good bench. And when Brunson got hurt, who took over for him? Quickly took over for him and played very well when Brunson wasn't 100% healthy. And by the way, when Randall got hurt, who was to fill in for him? Obi Toppin. Did Obi Toppin play well when he was filling in for him? Or RJ Barrett? Absolutely. So if you have depth, hold on. If you have depth, you can absolutely win, even with those players hurt. So yes, I think Chris Paul would fit very well with the Nets. Not with the Nets, with the Celtics. I do, but I don't think that's going to happen.
But those guys came back for them.
The Lakers, I think it makes a lot of sense.
But those guys came back for them to be successful. Randall came back. Brunson came back. Chris Paul gets hurt and he doesn't come back. And you're like, oh, you can win with depth. Your suggestion, by the way, is getting rid of one of the defensive all-stars on your team. So you'd be getting rid of some of that depth, just like Chris Paul in. And then when he gets hurt, inevitably, because
probably, yeah, but hey, you got to take a chance.
Then you wouldn't have that depth.
Listen, it
makes sense.
It does make sense. You don't need all three of those guys. You don't need Marcus Smart. No, you don't. You don't need White and Brogdon. They're practically all three of the same players. They play defense. Yes, they are. Brogdon is a better offensive player than obviously Smart. And yes, and White. White's not, but they ran their offense to White because of injuries in that Miami series, right?
You could maybe make the argument that White and Smart are similar, but Malcolm Brogdon absolutely not.
Fine, but Brogdon's also an injury-prone player, so I'm not going to sit here.
Healthy all year because they used him in a rotation, and he was sixth man of the year.
That's great. Congratulations to Mr. Brogdon. All right, congratulations. And he's a free agent this year, isn't he? Did he sign a 1 or 2 year deal?
With the team. No, he's still with the team.
So he signed a 2-year deal. All right. So they still have Brogdon. If I were the Celtics right now and I could get Chris Paul for practically nothing, and I need a leader on the court because obviously they don't have leadership. They're good. They're talented. They can win. They have won. They've gone to back-to-back Eastern conferences. They're great. But they can't get, last year they went to the finals, but they can't get over the hump. And for some reason, maybe it's leadership. Maybe it is leadership on the court.
But if you wanted leadership,
Yep.
there's a better point guard out there
Who?
who's available.
Who?
Damian Lillard.
Damian Lillard. Okay, now, if they go after Damian Lillard, they're going to have to give up a significant package. I'm reading that. Let me just read this quickly, and then we have our guest coming in. I told Speedy to reach out to this guy. Okay, and I'm not taking shots at this guy, but Eddie Batar from Fadeaway World proposed that the Knicks should send Jalen Brunson, forward Obi Toppin, and 4 first-round picks for Blazers Damian Lillard. I wouldn't do that if I wouldn't do that if Jalen Brunson wasn't even involved in the trade. Okay, I wouldn't do it.
Trade proposals people come up with.
Jalen Brunson by himself, I wouldn't trade for Damian Lillard right now. Why would the Knicks do that? That would be a stupid move. This guy finally is 26 years old. He's becoming a star in this league, and they're running their offense through him. And now all of a sudden they're going to bring in Damian Lillard, who is like 7 years older than him, and he is more expensive.
I think Lillard's 33.
Yeah, he's
26.
Yeah, and he's 26.
I don't know. You said maybe 7 years. I just wasn't sure if you knew how long Brunson was.
It was 7 years. It's 7 years.
I know your reading isn't.
Shut. You know. I'm really tired of your bullshit. You know that? You really are a pain in my ass. But
I mean, you read in front of the whole world. That's kind of
shut the hell up. You know what? You have a lot to say about everybody else, but when you look yourself in the mirror, what makes you so special? What makes you so special?
I can read without.
You could read. You could read like King Kong could. Be a team. Deal with older people.
Do you see how slow you are? You couldn't even finish that sentence.
Could you stop?
Goodbye,
Jeff. Goodbye, Jeff. Goodbye, Jeff. Jesus. He makes me flabbergasted. My head's just like it spins on a stick when he calls the show. I have to say, when he calls the show, it's fun. It adds energy. But boy, oh boy, he has nothing good to say about anybody. He will put down a bum on the street if he could. Okay, women, men, old people, anybody. Brett, he puts you down too. He doesn't know you, so he won't do it to you. But anyways, when we come back, we will be talking to ClutchPoints National NBA insider reporter Brett Siegel here on the Sports Loudmouths.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Of course my kid's in the right car seat. Well, I think he is.
Yeah, my kid's in a booster seat. He was ready to move up. He is ready, right?
Her car seat looks like the right size.
There are probably rules on when to move up to a booster seat, aren't there?
Rear facing, forward facing. I think I have it right.
Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Are your children in the right car seat for their age and size? Don't think you know. Know you know. Go to safercar.gov/the right seat.
I know my child's in the right car seat, or else I wouldn't get in the driver's seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. This is the Sports Loudmouths.
631-672-3108 is the number to call. You are listening to the Sports Loudmouths. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Speedy Petey. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Sports Loudmouths, which airs live every single Wednesdays at 7 p.m. and Thursdays at 9 p.m. Check out all the content, all the great guests that we have on the show. Whatever you miss, go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you want to listen to the replays of our shows. They're fantastic. 29,000
listens last month on Spotify, and 1.6 million downloads. And thank you to all the fans that have been liking our posts and everything around the country. We really appreciate everything that you guys are supporting, everything that we've been doing. And if you're not supporting us, I could care less anyways. But anyways, I'm just throwing it out there. It doesn't really matter, as we have a guy right now that has a pretty good following as well. And he's a basketball insider, and we're happy to have him on again. This is the third time he's been on the Sports Loudmouths, and no Tyler Harrison. So we don't have this guy yelling at you. We are now talking to ClutchPoints National NBA insider reporter, Brett Siegel. Brett, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. And I remember the last time you were on, it was COVID. You weren't wearing a mask, but if you were, I wouldn't feel bad for you. But anyways, a lot to get into. The basketball season is still at the end of the basketball season. We have Miami and Denver. It looks like Denver slowly is going to pull away in this series. I think they're the best team in the NBA. They've been the best team in the NBA, and I expect them to win a couple of championships. Not this one, but we'll go offset on that one. Let's go into the New York teams and some of the other teams that are not in the playoffs. And I want to know your opinion on their season and where they should go in the offseason. So the New York Knicks, a lot of people were taking shots at Leon Rose, bringing in Jalen Brunson, giving him the money that they gave him. And now it looks like it was an absolute steal of a deal. This guy was the biggest acquisition in the offseason by any team. He had the best drive when it comes to players in the NBA this year at his position, and he really boosted the Knicks up to places nobody thought they were going to be boosted up to, the second round of the playoffs, and went further, the furthest they've been in over 10 years. So what did you like about the Knicks this year, and what do you see the Knicks doing in the offseason that could change this team and make this team a contender?
Well, I think the two things that really stand out is at the beginning of the year, the Knicks started out not too great. They didn't look like a team that was going to make the playoffs. There were a lot of talk about Tom Thibodeau being on the hot seat. And then they go on that road trip in the West Coast. I think it was probably 11, 12, maybe 13 games into the year they went on this road trip on the West Coast. And there was a lot of talk. If Tom Thibodeau did not succeed there and they had a losing record at the end of that trip, he was going to be fired. Well, they responded. I think they went 5-2 on that road trip. And from there on out, they looked like a top 4, top 5 team in the Eastern Conference the rest of the way. And then at the trade deadline, they made a move, which I think was the greatest move of the trade deadline. You had guys like Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant being traded to other teams. But the biggest move that stood out to me was they went out and got Josh Hart. And you could see the impact that he brought to New York. Just his energy was infectious to everybody on this team. He was obviously college teammates with Jalen Brunson when they won a championship at Villanova. And they just needed a guy that could be a Swiss Army knife type player, knock down 3-point shots, be a solid defender on that end of the floor and guard multiple positions, not just shooting guards and point guards, but he was even a small ball center at times and given his rebounding abilities. So he's just a guy that fills so many different holes for them, and they're going to be bringing him back in the offseason. He's going to be opting out of his player option, and this is going to be one of those deals that's done immediately on July 1st. They're probably going to ink him to a 4-year long-term extension, so they'll be keeping Josh Hart around. And then the question for the Knicks in the offseason becomes, what's next? Because you lost to the Miami Heat in the second round of the Eastern Conference playoffs. You won your first playoff series since 2013. Obviously, there's concern with Julius Randle, whether or not he can be your number one option. Jalen Brunson had a terrific year, and you have a lot of money on the books right now. Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson, RJ Barrett, all making over $25 million next year. You have Evan Fournier with that team option. What will they potentially do there? So there's going to be some moving pieces this offseason, especially with GM Scott Perry no longer going to be with the organization. You have Leon Rose, who's going to be in charge of everything this offseason. Not too sure that they're going to bring in an outside voice. I think this is going to be an internal promotion there for who the next GM will be, but they're keeping everything in-house right now, and it seems like that they're going to continue to build with the pieces that they have.
Thank God Scott Perry is gone. I'm sorry. I don't care what anybody says about how great of a mind he is. He's been here for how long? And yes, I don't think he had anything to do with Jalen Brunson. I know a lot of people want to give him credit for the whole. I do believe the Julius Randle contract definitely went from him, because that was a dumb contract. I like Julius Randle. He was an all-world player this year. I think he was second team all NBA, I think, this year. He had a great season. Okay. There's no question. Now that he's at his highest point, I think the Knicks should trade him in the offseason. The question is, who is going to want Julius Randle when he doesn't show up in the big game? He hasn't, and he will not show up in the big game. He is the bricklayer of New York. So that's just my opinion.
It's a pretty small market if they were to look to trade Julius Randle this offseason. Right now, it seems like that they are going to be keeping him. The question, though, is, like I said, with those secondary pieces, you have Evan Fournier with that team option, could potentially save a lot of cap space there, especially if they look to trade him. And then you have Derrick Rose with his team option. So, or actually, I think it's Derrick Rose has the team option. Evan Fournier may have the non-guaranteed clause in his contract moving forward, but I believe he is under contract entering the offseason. So whether or not they'll look to get off the payroll of Fournier, and then they'll definitely be opting out of Rose's deal, it seems like, and trying to ink him to a smaller deal that's more team friendly.
So the guy that the Knicks have said they mentioned that they're most likely to trade is Mitchell Robinson, who's on a 4-year, $60 million contract, so $15 a year. And he's had his injury issues, but when he was on the court, he was one of the best pure centers in the league. Now, being that the center position has kind of been diminished in today's NBA because of the 3-point shooting, do you think he'll have any value, and is he worth trading if you're the Knicks?
I think that you have to explore it to see if there's a market for him. But again, the market for centers is going to be very small this offseason. Not many teams really looking to upgrade at that position or make a change at that position for that matter. And when you look at the modern day big man, a lot of guys are looking for that Kristaps Porzingis type player where he's a tall big man that can play out on the perimeter. He can rebound. And even a guy like Karl Anthony Towns, for example, a guy that's kind of reinvented his game and can play out on the perimeter, be your primary facilitator and scorer on either end of the floor. So I think that that's really what teams are looking for at the center position. And obviously Mitchell Robinson is a traditional big man, more of a bruiser like in the paint, where he's going to grab every single rebound on the offensive end and defensive end of the floor. He's going to block shots, but outside of the paint, he's pretty much non-existent other than setting screens. So I don't really see there being that big of a market if they do look to trade Mitchell Robinson.
We are talking to ClutchPoints National NBA insider reporter Brett Siegel. And I will say this. You need that in the playoffs. The Knicks had problems against Miami rebounding the ball. They were one of the best rebounding teams in the NBA all season long. They were the best offensive rebounding team, or second best offensive rebounding team in the NBA all season long. And then in the playoffs, especially in the second round, and I believe because Mitchell Robinson wasn't 100% healthy, and you could see that he was grabbing his hip. He wasn't 100% healthy, but I have to give him credit. He went out there and he played and he did his best. And that's what all you expect, because we see Julius Randle. He just absolutely gives up on plays. It just annoys the hell out of me as a Knicks fan. So, Brett, we look at the Knicks, and I think Evan Fournier, they'll get rid of him. Rose, I don't know if they bring him back. There is a guy that a lot of people were talking about at the trade deadline that Chicago was thinking about moving. The Knicks have had problems at the 3-point. They were the worst NBA team throughout the season for 3-point shots. They couldn't hit a 3 if you paid them to. So Zach LaVine is a guy that I think would fit in this offense. I think he's a great perimeter shooter. He can go to the hole. He draws fouls. He's a pretty good free throw shooter, and he could be your number one guy. He really could be a number one guy on a team. Do you think that the Knicks could explore that in the offseason and maybe make a move? They have a lot of picks. They have 11 picks in 7 years. I mean, the Knicks are positioned very, very well to move picks and maybe bring in a player that fits this culture, fits this team, and maybe makes this team a contender.
I think it's a possibility, I would lean more towards the fact of I think it's a possibility that Chicago could move on from Zach LaVine in the offseason rather than him going to the Knicks necessarily. The Bulls situation right now is just very unclear. You have Nikola Vucevic, who's up for an extension. They said that they want to sign him to an extension, and now they're about 2 weeks out from that deadline before he becomes an unrestricted free agent in the offseason. So no one really knows what's going to happen there, whether or not they'll agree to a long-term deal. It does seem like that a 3 or 4 year extension is in the works right now. Obviously, you have talk about DeMar DeRozan, who's entering the final year of his deal. You have Zach LaVine, who just signed this big deal, and then Lonzo Ball, who the Bulls, when they got Lonzo Ball early on, I believe it was a year ago, was his first season with Chicago. They were a really good team. They were looking like one of the best teams in the East. Obviously, he goes down with that knee injury. Now there's concerns about whether or not he'll even be able to continue his career at this point. And that's kind of started a downward spiral for Chicago as a whole. And they've had this rebuild going on ever since 1998, ever since that Last Dance season. Nothing has been the same for the Chicago Bulls. And it just seems like that everything that can go wrong for this franchise continues to go wrong. and injuries have continued to derail them, just like they did back when D Rose won the MVP there.
Yep.
So is it feasible to believe that Zach LaVine could be on the move? Absolutely. He could be on the move depending if they want to rebuild or not. This is a front office that still believes in this team. They believe in their core, LaVine, DeRozan, and Vucevic right now. And you have Alex Caruso, who's coming off an all defensive year as well. He's been a really solid addition for them out on the perimeter and in the backcourt. So I would expect the Bulls to maybe give this one last go and try to buy talent at this point and bring in other key contributors. Maybe a guy like Chris Paul, even if he was to hit the market, maybe he would consider going to the Chicago Bulls. Maybe he'd be the missing link for them. So I would expect Chicago to be buyers instead of sellers entering the offseason.
Interesting.
So we heard today that Damian Lillard broke out 2 teams he wanted to be traded to, the Nets and the Miami Heat.
The Nets. Is he out of his mind?
So what are your thoughts on those 2 locations for somebody like Damian Lillard? Do you think a trade is realistic?
He's on drugs.
Yeah, I mean, the Nets are a very likely destination if Damian Lillard was to request a trade. He obviously came out and said that. But you look at the moves that the Nets have made through the years. You had the Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving era. You brought in James Harden. Obviously, you gave up all these assets to make that team happen. They made it to the Eastern Conference semifinals. If it wasn't for Kevin Durant's big toe being on the line, I think that they probably would have won a championship that year. Obviously, it's one of the biggest what-if storylines in the NBA right now. They lost to the Milwaukee Bucks in that Game 7. The Bucks were the ones that went on to win the title, and everything derailed for the Brooklyn Nets. You have Kevin Durant now with the Phoenix Suns, Kyrie Irving with the Dallas Mavericks as a free agent this offseason. So where do the Nets go from here? Well, over the second half of the season, they looked like a really good team on the rise. You have Mikal Bridges, who just exploded ever since he left Phoenix. He's looking like an all-star in the making for the Brooklyn Nets. Cam Johnson took a next step in his career with the Brooklyn Nets. He's going to be a restricted free agent that they're going to do everything they can to bring back this offseason. And then you have a bunch of other key secondary pieces around them. You have Spencer Dinwiddie. You have Joe Harris, who the franchise still likes as a three-point shooter. They believe that he can still be a 40% three-point shooter for them out on the wing. You have Dorian Finney-Smith, who is a very underrated defender in this league. The same thing can be said about Royce O'Neal. Nick Claxton had an all-defensive type season for them. So they definitely have pieces to grow. The only thing that's missing is that one key star. And when you look at Damian Lillard, you put him on this team with other capable three-point shooters. He has the versatile defenders that he doesn't have in Portland. And all of a sudden, you have a team that looks like one that can contend in the Eastern Conference, maybe in that 3, 4, 5 seed region, and potentially go on a run, because we've seen it in the East time and time again, where just because you're the 1 or 2 seed, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals or the NBA Finals. I mean, we can just look at this year, the Miami Heat, an 8 seed who during the regular season struggled offensively, and they had a lot of injuries that they had to deal with, not your traditional 8 seed, and now they're in the NBA Finals. We could see a very similar approach by a lot of teams moving forward, where not that they give up on the regular season, but if a guy's injured, they'll just keep him out, keep him ready for the playoffs. And we've seen it work for the Miami Heat, so why can't it work for us? That could be the mentality moving forward. And if you're the Brooklyn Nets, you bring in Damian Lillard to the equation. You have all those secondary pieces around him. You have the makings of being a really good team. And I mentioned that they gave up a lot of assets to get that Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden team together. Well, when they traded Irving and Kevin Durant, they got a lot of assets back. They have a total of 21 draft picks over the next, I believe it's 6-7 years. And that's including first and second round picks as a whole. So they have a lot to deal with.
Yeah, well, I know Sean Marks has the last name, has my last name, but I think he'll be marked out of here very, very soon, because I don't like what he's done with the Brooklyn Nets. And this team has been nothing but a clown show. This whole organization's been, you talk about the Jets, and I'm a Jet fan, and I've dealt with such clown craziness with executives coming in and coming out. Now you're watching this team, and it seems like every single 5 years, another clown comes in as an executive for that organization and absolutely blows up that team. A team that everybody thought, hey, they're going to win a championship, maybe win 2 or 3 now that they have James Harden there. I mean, that team couldn't get along. I mean, you could have put strippers in that clubhouse and they still wouldn't have gotten along. I mean, seriously. And by the way, Kyrie Irving's such a hypocrite and so out of his mind. I'm so happy he's out of New York. And I used to love the guy. I think he's one of the most talented players we've ever seen play in the NBA. But the guy just doesn't shut up. He doesn't learn how to zipper his mouth and just play the game and just use his talents to show everybody what makes him so special. Instead, the moron opens his mouth and says the dumbest things that
not only throws his team and his organization under the bus, he throws the whole brand of the NBA under the bus and says, man, there's a bunch of idiots in this league. Why would I want, as a kid, I'm 12, 13 years old. Yes, the money's there, but why would I want to play basketball? I'd rather play football. At least I could talk crap on the field and get punched in the face. I mean, seriously. And there are a bunch of girls in the NBA. I'm sorry. We were talking to ClutchPoints National NBA insider reporter Brett Siegel. Brett, now let's get into the finals. And to me, Denver, Jokic, to me, has been the best player in the NBA for the last 3 years. The fact that Joel Embiid was crying that he didn't win the MVP last year when he wasn't the MVP. This is a guy that's been the MVP year in and year out for 3 years. He's probably going to win another MVP next year. Murray is finally getting back to where he was before he tore his ACL. And Porter, we don't know when his back's going to fail, but since he's been drafted, he's been a great number 3. And they have a bench and they have a team. Do you think that this could be the next big team, the big championship teams that we've seen, of the Lakers winning 3, with Kobe and Shaq, and obviously what we've seen in the last couple of years with Golden State, and now the Denver Nuggets? Do you think that this team is capable of doing that for the next couple of years?
Well, some of the teams that you just mentioned, those are dynasties, and that's very rare in the NBA. I mean, we're talking about the Chicago Bulls with Jordan and Pippen. We're talking about Shaq and Kobe with the Lakers. Obviously, you have Curry and the Warriors and what they've been able to achieve through the years. I don't necessarily know if the Nuggets are trending towards that direction, but I think that they're trending towards being a very good team and a very sustainable culture for a long time to come. And when I say that word culture, the first thing that comes to mind is the Miami Heat. And we can look at what they've been able to do, not even through the last decade, but over the last 2 decades. I mean, this is just an organization that you look at, and the first word that comes to mind when you think of the Miami Heat is success. And Pat Riley has instilled that with that franchise. Every single year, it seems like that even though they may not have the best year in the NBA, they always have a chance to be successful. I think that's what we're trending towards for the next 10, 20 years with the Denver Nuggets. I think that they're in very good hands. Their front office has some of the most brilliant minds that I've had the pleasure of talking with in the NBA. And when you look at their system, they just draft guys that fit this culture and they just fit in so well. I mean, Christian Brown, for example, is a rookie that just gives it his all. You don't hear him out in the media saying, oh, I want more playing time, or you don't see him complaining about anything. He just goes out there, does his job, and they wind up winning games. I mean, he was a big reason why they won Game 3. Granted, Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic had triple doubles, and they had 2 historic performances in the NBA Finals. But if Christian Brown doesn't have that type of performance, who knows? Maybe the Heat have one of those 8-0 runs, 10-0 runs, and they're able to cut in that game late and come back, much like they did at the end of Game 1 and much like they did in Game 2. So I think that he's a terrific rookie for them. I think Peyton Watson, who we haven't seen much in the playoffs, is another guy in their system that we're going to hear more and more about moving forward out on the wing, that is going to provide even more depth behind Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. But to me, the biggest thing that makes the Denver Nuggets a championship contender, other than their head coach and Michael Malone, who I think is a travesty that he hasn't been named coach of the year yet, I think that their biggest keys are their depth. And when I say that, it's their veteran depth. So they may not play, but guys like DeAndre Jordan, Ish Smith, Jeff Green. I mean, these are guys that have been in the league for 13, 14, 15 plus years. They've been on championship contending teams. They've been on playoff teams. They've seen everything that there is to know about this league. And when you pair them, for example, you have a guy like Ish Smith. You can pair him with Jamal Murray in the locker room and in practice. He can learn so much from Ish Smith, given how many teams he's been a part of. Jeff Green, we've seen him mentor Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr.
Lucky to be
you have a guy
alive.
like DeAndre Jordan who can mentor Jokic for years to come. So it's just going to be this in and out system of veterans coming in, veterans staying, and just this foundation that they've continued to build up through the years. So to answer your question of, is this the next dynasty? I don't necessarily know about that, but I think we're going to be talking about the Denver Nuggets a lot like we talk about the Milwaukee Bucks right now, where every single year they have Giannis, they have a chance to win a title. Every single year the Denver Nuggets have Nikola Jokic, they're going to have a chance to win a title.
So you were talking about it earlier, like the underdog runs we've seen this year with the Lakers to the 7th seed, making it to the conference finals, and then Miami going to the finals as the 8th seed. Do you think it's kind of a fluke thing, something random like that? Or do you think it's a sign of things to come for this this play-in tournament the way it's been structured?
I don't think it's a fluke at all. And I've been saying this even during the COVID season, we've been seeing the talent slowly rise in this league to the point where you look at all 30 teams, you can point to at least one guy and say he's an all-star, or hey, he's going to be an all-star either next year or the year after. I mean, you could point to the last place team this year, the Detroit Pistons or the Houston Rockets. Detroit Pistons, you got Cade Cunningham, and they have another high-level draft pick coming in. Houston Rockets, they have Jalen Green, another high-level talent right there. So it's just up and down these teams. You have so much talent, and it adds so much parity to the league to the point where you have these 7 and 8 seeds being able to contend for championships. So whereas back in the day, it was really dominated by those first few teams, those 1, 2s, and 3 seeds, that doesn't matter anymore. And we're going to start seeing this a lot more because of the play-in tournament. Teams are a lot more competitive, and especially with the new collective bargaining agreement rules coming in, that's going to restrict teams from having these insanely high payrolls. Teams are going to have to start making decisions whether or not they're going to pay $400 million to have their teams together. And that's going to start creating other opportunities for teams like the Charlotte Hornets, teams like the Detroit Pistons, who don't necessarily have a huge market, and they're not a part of the New York, Los Angeles market per se, but they'll be able to start landing some of these bigger name guys simply because teams won't be able to create these super teams anymore. So I think that the parity around the league is just fantastic, and the talent's just going to continue to grow, especially with this draft class coming in.
Brett, we've been speaking to quite a few ex-NBA players that have been on the show. Chris Childs was on a show about a week and a half ago. We were talking to him about Ja Morant. We had Eric Hasseltine, the voice, the play-by-play guy for the Memphis Grizzlies, on yesterday, talking about Ja Morant. Ja Morant is a fantastic talent. Honestly, he's a better version of James Harden, or he is as good as it gets in the NBA. I think he could go down as one of the best point guards of all time if this guy continues doing what he is doing and stays healthy. The problem with this guy is he does a lot of stupid things off the court that just makes you shake your head and wonder if this guy has brains. Okay. And Chris Childs told us the other day, he said, listen, there's a lot of NBA players that have reached out to the GM for the Memphis Grizzlies and want to speak to this kid because a lot of people believe that this kid could be something special, but his career could go down in flames before it even starts. What were your thoughts after seeing that Instagram video of him smiling with his friends or friend and holding up a gun and making it seem like he is from the ghetto, and he's not from that type of family. As we know, his father and mother have done very, very well for themselves. He grew up a middle-class private school type of basketball player. So what is up with Ja Morant? Is Ja Morant all there? And do you think that somehow that this kid's head's going to get back on his body, and actually he's going to go out there and be a little bit smarter and a little bit dumber than he's been over the last couple of weeks, that last couple of months?
Yeah, so obviously that first incident happened in the Denver nightclub back in March, where he was seen waving a gun in the nightclub, and he was suspended for that. He was suspended 8 games, I believe, by the NBA and the Memphis Grizzlies. And he said that he was going to change. He was going to get the help that he needed, took some time away from the team. Everything seemed like that was trending in the right direction. He comes back. You could tell in his voice and his tone that he made some necessary changes in his mentality, and he was ready to really focus on making himself not only a better basketball player, but a better man and a better example for those that look up to him. Obviously, Adam Silver had very high standards for what had happened and discussed all this with him, and they seemed to have a mutual understanding of the consequences that would happen from another incident like this. And then not even 2 months later, I believe it was a month and 2 weeks later, he's seen in the car on Instagram Live flashing a gun at a camera once again while he's dancing to some song. So I don't know. I don't know at this point of what his career is looking like and kind of what the mentality is, because when that popped up on my feed the second time around and there was that video, I thought that they were just referencing the first thing again. So I didn't pay much attention to it at first. And then it kept circulating and it came back around and those notifications kept blowing up. And I just said to myself, are you kidding me? Like, did this guy not learn his lesson the first time? Because this is a serious matter. It's not something where he's just seen out like smoking weed or something. We've seen players do that and post it on Instagram Live and they get a slap on the wrist for it. It's not something like that. I mean, we're talking about a life or death situation. God forbid his finger hits that trigger and the gun is loaded. I mean, you could either lose your life, you could shoot somebody else and they could lose their life. This is a guy with a young daughter. He's a role model to a ton of people that look up to him in this league, kids that are wearing his jersey today. He's got a shoe deal with Nike, kids wearing his shoes.
He
John
might lose
Morant,
that deal, by the way. I've
yeah,
been
he may
hearing.
lose it. One of the young faces on the Mount Rushmore of this young NBA. And now you have all this off the court drama to the point where people are saying, we don't even know if you're going to be in the league moving forward years down the line. So I think that's very unfortunate. I think that all these guys that are reaching out, I've seen Kevin Garnett, who I think would be an excellent mentor for him, reach out. Gilbert Arenas has reached out. Obviously, a guy that has been through something similar
Stay
to John
the hell
Morant.
away from Gilbert Arenas, please.
But
Oh
he's
my
been
God.
through something like that
Oh,
before.
boy,
so just
boy, has he
hearing
ever.
about his lessons can be very valuable to a guy like John Morant. So I think that anybody who is anybody that has had disciplinary issues in the NBA before, it doesn't hurt for them to reach out to John Morant and just say, hey, dude, like, you need to stop. And this is what happened to me. I was a better person after doing X, Y, and Z. So I think that's a very delicate matter that the NBA is taking very seriously. We've heard Adam Silver multiple times through the week say that they've come to a conclusion of what the disciplinary action will be from this. From people that I've spoken with around the league, it does seem like that this is going to be a serious suspension that is either 25 to 50% of next season that he's going to be suspended for. So the Grizzlies are preparing to be without John Morant for a significant amount of time to begin next year. Moving forward, what does his future look like in Memphis? Who knows at this point? What does his future look like in the NBA? It all depends if he can come back and fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me type scenario. So
This is the third time.
It's going to be interesting.
He had a gun.
Yeah.
He actually pulled out a gun on a kid playing a pickup game. So, and he did it.
And that
not
was a
just
police
doing-
investigation going
Yes.
on too.
And he
And
denies
chased
that.
into the guy's house, too.
Yes, he denies that, which I probably believe the kid now. I don't believe John Morant. I would believe that he's crazy enough to do something stupid like that.
Right.
But there's a lot of stupid guys in the NBA, as we mentioned, Kyrie Irving being one of them. But my thoughts to what we have seen over the last couple of years, I blame Adam Silver. Okay, because Adam Silver, when David Stern gave him the reins of the NBA, I thought that Adam Silver was going to take this to higher heights. The guy's an intelligent guy. I thought he was going, if there's any commissioner that's going to take an organization to a better situation, it would be Adam Silver. And honestly, I'm going to say this. I'm sure you've spoken to Adam Silver before, so I know you're not going to throw him under the bus. But I'm going to throw him under the bus because I respect the guy and I look up to him. That whole anti-Semitic thing with Kyrie Irving, how no NBA player, none. We saw with Black Lives Matter, which I was behind everything that they were doing, the NBA players, everything. Why was it when Kyrie Irving was trying to sell something so despicable, so disgusting, and it took him a couple of weeks to apologize when he thought he wasn't even wrong for what he did? You didn't have LeBron James stick up for anti-Semitic thoughts that Kyrie Irving had to the Holocaust. You didn't hear Kevin Durant. Both guys, both faces that know Kyrie Irving very, very well said, leave the guy alone. People make mistakes. Meanwhile, the guy kept promoting it. As a matter of fact, my friend, when he was traded to Dallas and he went up and he spoke at the press conference, he took back his apology. He took back his apology at that press conference. It just shows you how lame and disgusting that man is. And if Dallas was smart, Mark Cuban is half Jewish. If Mark Cuban was smart, he doesn't bring that idiot back to his organization because he looks like a fool. You see, Luka wasn't happy with him over there. And Luka could be on his way looking out too if this team doesn't figure things out too. So what are your thoughts to that?
Well, in terms of Dallas, yeah, they have a big offseason ahead of them. Obviously, there were those weird rumors that popped up last week with linking LeBron James to the Mavericks. Obviously, were there conversations to be had between Irving and James in which that popped up? Probably, because those guys talk to each other every single week. And we've even talked about it on this show where guys in NBA gyms over the summer, I mean, is it tampering? Sure, but they're going to talk about what their futures hold and if they want to play together. So those don't make any sense, though. LeBron going to the Mavericks. The Mavericks don't have the cap ability or the assets to make that trade happen. And then there was the stuff about LeBron James potentially being on the move last season and the Mavericks putting a package together for him. Well, James was ineligible to be traded, so I'm not really sure where that came from. So in terms of them getting James, I'm putting that literally at a 0% chance. If James is going to play next year, it's going to be for the Los Angeles Lakers. And then where can they go from here? Well, you have Kyrie Irving, who's a free agent. Are they going to bring him back? Chris Paul could potentially be a free agent if he gets bought out of his contract and waived. So the Mavericks, I don't know. I think that they're in a very interesting spot because they don't have assets. Like I said, they got rid of Dorian Finney-Smith and Spencer Dinwiddie, who were two of their bigger trade assets. They acquired Kyrie Irving for him. They gave up draft assets for Kyrie Irving. So it does seem like that it's Kyrie or bust at this time. If they don't hold on to Kyrie, maybe it will be a sign and trade for them to get someone else. But I think that you're right, that the clock is ticking for Luka Doncic. You could see that the frustrations were very apparent this year, especially after missing the playoffs. If something like that happens again, there's going to be a lot of people on the hot seat within this organization, especially with Luka being frustrated because he's top 5 player in this league right now and he's young. So if you were to trade him, all other 29 teams in the league are going to be lining up to try to get him.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like anybody's lining up for Trae Young right now. 2 years. He did all that greatness against the Knicks, and the Knicks fans were giving him the finger. He was giving it back to him, and now Atlanta wants him out, and they want him out fast. They don't want him there anymore. I think they want to move on from Trae Young. You will see Trae Young. If there's anybody that's going to be traded this offseason, Trae Young will be moved. I guarantee it. Book it. He will be traded from the Hawks. Speedy, what are you looking at? You don't believe me on this one? Let's make a bet. Are you looking? What are you looking at?
Oh, they meant with Brett.
I'm talking to you.
No, I'm not doubting you.
I said bet.
Well, I will actually doubt you because I have actually heard that they are on the same page, the Hawks and Trae Young. I've heard that they've been on speaking terms, that they've been talking about this. He has a good relationship with new head coach Quinn Snyder, and Young actually does want to stay in Atlanta. He wants to see this out. He believes that they have the pieces to kind of build something together and build a contender there. So I don't think he's going to be on the move this offseason. I think that they're also going to be a team that is similar to the Chicago Bulls in the sense that their front office is going to want to buy this offseason. They're going to try to surround Young and Murray with capable talents to win right now.
Interesting. Well, Brett, we really appreciate you as always. You're fantastic. Keep up the good work. We'll be in touch. Your thoughts and your wisdom with the NBA is beyond a lot of different people that we've spoken to, but I think you were one that didn't like the Jalen Brunson move, so I think you're swallowing that tongue of yours. I do believe.
Well, I'm a big Donovan Mitchell guy. I mean, you can see it back there. I got the Louisville right there, so
I know
Louisville connection. We're always going to roll with Donovan Mitchell.
I still believe Donovan Mitchell will be a Knick one way or another. I do believe it. I don't think it'll be until he becomes a free agent at the age of 29, but one way or another, I think he will play in New York with the Knicks. I do believe it, but it might be a little too late, but who knows? My friend, we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. You guys take care. Thanks.
ClutchPoints National NBA insider reporter, Brett Siegel. He is fantastic. He really is. His inside thoughts with the NBA is beyond anybody's thought when it comes to his wording, his precise thoughts to everything that we had and we spoken about. It was dead on. And I agree with everything he said, but he was one of the guys that told me Jalen Brunson was going to be a bust, not a good move by the Knicks. And he was wrong. And, and I'm going to reach out to him and I am going to press a bet on him that Trae Young will not be a Hawk by the new NBA season next year. That's a guarantee. Trae Young will not be with the Atlanta Hawks. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we will be talking to New York Post feature reporter Alex Mitchell, who covers the Yankees, the Islanders, and recently interviewed Aljamain Sterling, Ray Longo, and Matt Serra. Three guys I know very, very well, by the way. I've trained in the Matt Serra gym. I've known Ray Longo forever. I do a lot of his events. And Aljamain, I trained with him when he first started mixed martial arts. So I know him pretty well. So when we come back, Alex Mitchell here on the Sports Loudmouths.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
This is Mario Andretti. You know me as a race car driver, but I'm also a Meals on Wheels volunteer. I've raced against the sport's biggest personalities, but I've never met more vibrant, amazing people than the seniors served by Meals on Wheels. As a volunteer, you deliver a hot, nutritious meal and a friendly hello to someone just like your mother, grandfather, or next-door neighbor. These seniors are inspiring people with incredible stories to share, and they love to see you. The smiles you get back are priceless. Delivering with Meals on Wheels is easy, and you don't have to drive like me for it to be quick. You can volunteer your lunch break once a week or just once a month. With 1 in 6 seniors facing hunger and many more living in isolation, your lunch break can make a real difference. So, America, let's do lunch. Volunteer your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. This is the Sports Loudmouths.
Six 672-3108 is the number to call. You are listening to the Sports Loudmouths. Remember, you can go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Sports Loudmouths, which airs every Wednesdays at 7 p.m. and Thursdays at 9 p.m. Yes, there's smoke in the air here in New York, but who cares? Because the Sports Loudmouths are airing right now live. So if you're, tearing or crying about something, or you can cry more, you can listen to our thoughts of what's going on in the sports world every single week, Wednesdays and Thursdays. And you can listen to the Weekend Crunch, which airs on 103.9 FM, the only live sports radio show that airs out here in Long Island throughout the week. So yes, we're here, and we have a new guest, ladies and gentlemen, and very, very happy to have him on. We haven't spoken to him for a little while, but seems like he's doing big things. We are now talking to New York Post feature reporter Alex Mitchell, who covers the Yankees, the Islanders, and he just recently interviewed the champion of the UFC, Aljamain Sterling, Ray Longo, and Matt Serra. What's up, my friend?
Guys, it's good to be back. How's everything going?
You look like you're doing well, man. I mean, you're doing big things. You're interviewing some MMA guys. I know them pretty well. I trained out of the Matt Serra gym for it was almost 2 years. I would say a couple of years. I wasn't a big fan of his training, so I kind of stepped away. I've known Ray for a very long time, one of the best striking coaches in Long Island. And a couple of his fighters have been very successful in the NBA and in the UFC. And one of them that you also interviewed has been the champion for the last couple of months, and a guy that wants his respect by Dana White now, as he's come out and pretty much called Dana White out on his disrespectful thoughts to what he has done in the cage for the last couple of fights. And Aljamain Sterling. So before we get into your interview and what you thought about all those guys, how are you doing? How's your family doing? How are your teams doing?
Family's doing well. Teams, however, if you look over my shoulder, it has not been a great end of spring for the Islanders, but a very hopeful one at that. Very, very bittersweet. That Carolina series, man, that eats me up. That was actually, so, also to clarify, I love the Islanders. I haven't covered them for a while. Not at,
you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean.
You know what I mean.
But I was at all the home playoff games this year, and that game 6 that killed me, man. That was a tough one to stomach because it felt like the Islanders finally figured out the cure to the illness, if you want to call it, that was the Carolina Hurricanes, and how they just, throughout the regular season, the Canes just had the Islanders number, and then you just see this extremely physical defensive playoff series where the Islanders finally find a way to beat them. They beat them for the first time in the playoffs ever in the franchise's history, and then they do it again. And
the first two games screwed them. The referees absolutely screwed the Islanders.
Officiating, there's no doubt about that. I mean, when Scott Mayfield takes a high stick in overtime right in front of the referee, and the Hurricanes score a game-winning goal
in the first game, Pulak, they lost 2-1, I think, in that game. That penalty that they scored 2 power plays in that game, that Pulak penalty was absolutely horrendous. And if that didn't happen, it would have went to overtime.
It was bad. And I mean, listen, to play devil's advocate, there were a lot of times the Hurricanes got hosed too.
Yes.
The officiating, they just missed a lot of calls. And I think that was just the mentality. We're going to call what we call, and what we miss, we'll better luck next time. And that was frustrating. And I think you saw that not just in the Islanders Hurricane series. I think you saw that across the board. But some other sad news, if you will, or a hint to sad news. Josh Bailey, whatever's going to end up happening with him.
This is great news. This is great news.
He's someone who really grew on me, and if it's his time, I understand that.
Who would you rather? Okay, let's be honest. Josh Bailey or Vladimir Tarasenko, okay?
Or maybe Matthew Tkachuk when the Islanders perhaps had an opportunity at him. He's doing big things.
They're not getting him now. So I don't think they had any shot at Matthew Tkachuk. I think Vladimir Tarasenko is a guy that you definitely could look at this offseason. He's going to be 32. He's everything that Lou likes as a player. He's a gritty guy that can, he can grind. If he could stay on the ice, he could put the puck in the net. And he gives you that mentality of type of player. He's like a Claude Lemieux type of player. He could put the puck in the net. He's gritty. He's a finesse kind of player, but he could do all those other things that you expect a good offensive player to do. And you can match him up. You could put him on the first line with Bo Horvat and Barzell, or you can move him to the second line with, one of the better centers in the league. I can't believe I'm saying that. But Brock Nelson, who's been fantastic last 2 seasons for the New York Islanders.
I mean, listen, if the move is Bailey moves on and the Islanders bring in Vladimir Tarasenko.
Seems like it's going to happen. I talked to Lou about it, by the way. I didn't speak to Lou about that, but I kind of I was at an event and Lou showed up there, and I walked up to Lou. It's funny. I told this to Speedy off air, and I walked up to Lou. Nobody knew it was Lou Lamoriello. Everybody kept going to Ryan Pulak and everybody else. And I'm like, I'm not here to run after. I saw him like walking around and, like Lou, quiet. I walked up to Lou. I introduced myself, and I said, "Hey, Lou." I said, "I like the Envol move. You added some speed. He actually played pretty decent in the playoffs, no question. You want to bring him back? Bring him back."
He was the depth that the Islanders need.
Yes,
he really was. Continue, please.
I also told him. I said, Sorokin. However you got Sorokin here from the KHL, you're an absolute genius because you brought in a goaltender that I think not only could the Islanders ride on. This guy is one of the top 3 goaltenders. He will be one of the top 3 goaltenders moving forward year in and year out. He's that good of a goalie. So I said that about that, but I said the Bo Horvat move was funny. I thought it was interesting what you said after you made the move and you signed him, and you said he was overpaid. I didn't understand that, Lou, but I also, and he smiled. I said, but I said the Islanders need another offensive player. You need to add a little bit more speed to the third and fourth line. Maybe you start to move away from Cizikas and Martin and Clutterbuck. That's what I said to him. And he looked at me. He says, the off season is long. We'll see what happens. And he looked at me like I had 6 heads. Honestly, that's what he looked like. But hey, I'm not Lou Lamoriello. I didn't win 3 Stanley Cups, so I can't say that I did. But hey, Lou needs to see the big picture here. You're not going to win in the NHL the way the Devils won year in and year out in the 90s with a great goaltender and the grinding, kind of defense that they were playing every single year. It's not going to work anymore. You need speed, and you need guys that can find a way to put the puck in the net, and the Islanders just don't have it.
Yeah. I agree with you 110%. I'd probably shed tears of joy if Vladimir Tarasenko is coming out to Elmont, and to go back to what line he should play on. You put him on the first line and you make that line a gosh darn weapon of hockey. Like you said, Barzell, and the classic Barzell move. He dangles, he moves, he goes around the net. He's gets 3 guys on him, 2 guys are open, but no one can ever convert. And that would be, having another playmaker, one with championship experience. Let's not get lost upon that either. I think it would be outstanding. And the other reason I really want him, 2 reasons. I want him to be an Islander, but more than that, I don't want him to be a New York Ranger.
He's not going to be a Ranger. The Rangers right now are so, strapped with salaries. They have to decide what they're doing with Lafreniere. They're probably going to extend him because they don't want to lose a 21, 22-year-old, even though he hasn't developed right. Kintel has been the only one that's really developed for him.
25 goals, thankfully.
Kako's been an absolute bust. I mean, there's a lot of guys that have taken steps back. They really haven't played as well as you expected these youngsters to develop. So I think in the big picture, I don't see Tarasenko going back to the Rangers. More Patrick Kane if he takes a small contract because he's going to miss half the season. I could see Patrick Kane going back. I think there's a lot of suitors for Tarasenko. I could see, and I know Jeff's going to go crazy, but I could see Boston. I know they're strapped up money, but Tarasenko's only going to be asking for between 5.5 and 6 million at most.
Could you imagine that Pastrnak and Tarasenko?
I don't want to say that. I don't want to say it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Boston moves salaries and moves players, and they land a guy like Tarasenko. It would make me throw up.
The Bruins will land Tarasenko to get a 145-point season and lose in the first round.
Another team that to watch out for is Detroit. I think Steve Yzerman knows what he's doing. I think he's building a pretty good young team over there. They have some really good young players in their farm system. Jeff says it's impossible. Nothing's impossible to maneuver contracts. If you want Vladimir Tarasenko, you can make the move and get him. But I could see Tarasenko going to Detroit. I could see a couple of players going to Detroit. So Tarasenko, Lou's always had a background. He's been trying to get this guy here in New York, especially for the Islanders. Maybe this time around it happens and it falls together for the New York Islanders. So go ahead, Speedy.
I was going to ask, we've seen, you mentioned you were talking about Tkachuk they could have traded for last year, but we've also seen
Tkachuk.
There's a lot of guys that have been rumored now to be potentially traded. We just heard Alex DeBrincat today, who I think would actually be a really good fit for the Islanders.
So you know,
he was another one the Islanders already made a push for.
Yes, just so you know, Speedy, the T is silent. It's Tkachuk.
Thank you.
Okay,
but
so you know.
Is there any targets?
I'm helping him with the pronunciation. I am very bad at pronunciations when it comes to hockey names. My own agent tells me you need to work on it, and I finally am correcting this guy who's probably better with names than I ever was. So there you go. So, some possibilities.
So is there any of those types of players that could be available? We heard Winnipeg, Philly, among teams that could be shedding some pieces, some big contracts, maybe somebody like a Kyle Connor or one of the Flyers wingers. Is there anyone that you would want as a trade target, potentially, even if they do sign a free agent like Tarasenko?
The only reason I'm resistant on DeBrincat is, and almost not that I say I'm resistant to Tarasenko either, but it's like, why didn't you come the first time? What was so unappealing last year that magically the Islanders have gotten together in the offseason? Maybe it's just a little bit of professionalism, wait and see. My gut says take a chance on someone who hasn't rejected the franchise, someone who's more eager to play here, where you're not, for lack of a better word, you're trying to beg him, or in Tarasenko's case, reality is he picked the Rangers over the Islanders.
Well, he didn't. Well, hold on one second. And I know a lot of Ranger fans and Islander fans are going to go back and forth. Tarasenko already came out and said last year when he was there was a chance he was going to be available at the trade deadline for St. Louis. He said that he would go to the Rangers or the Islanders or the Devils. He'd go anywhere. He would play anywhere. I don't think it was Tarasenko's choice. He wanted to play for the Rangers. But if he had his choice between Rangers and the Islanders, everybody wants to play in Madison Square Garden. So, yeah, I understand that. But if Tarasenko gets his contract, I think he fits very well with Bo Horvat and Barzal.
I think he would. And also, to talk about Bo Horvat and Barzal, they didn't get a lot of play time together before the playoffs. Barzell's rushing his injury back, and the heroics that he put together should be applauded. And you in the back of your mind, it's like, what if he was healthy? But then 93, what if Pierre Turgeon didn't get lights out by Dale Hunter?
Should be in the Hall of Fame, by the way. He's absolutely being robbed by the NHL. Pierre Turgeon is a Hall of Famer, absolute, flat out, 500 goals, over 1,200 points. I mean, how is that guy not in the Hall of Fame? How is he not in the Hall of Fame?
It's frustrating, especially for Islanders fans. It almost feels like another open wound from 93, where it's like, would he have been if who knows? Would they have beaten the Canadians in the conference final? Oh, God, don't.
They probably would have. They probably would have.
I do.
It definitely would have been
wasn't
more
an
than a 5-game series.
I wasn't an Islander fan at that time. I grew up a Ranger fan. Then I transitioned after they traded Van Beesbrook. I was a Van Beesbrook fan. I grew up. I went to a lot of the camps. I was a big hockey player. And then Van Beesbrook went to the Panthers. And then I was a Panther fan for a little while. And then when he went to the Islanders, when he was transitioned his second half or the end of his career, when he went to the Islanders and the Devils and Philadelphia, I became an Islander fan, and I've been an Islander fan since. But I've seen a lot of bad hockey with the Islanders. So
we all have.
Pierre Turgeon was a guy that I always respected. As everybody knows, the Islanders did not draft him. The Islanders traded for Pierre Turgeon. It was Pat LaFontaine for Pierre Turgeon. And Pat LaFontaine went to Buffalo. He wasn't the same player he was with the Islanders. Just dealt with a lot of injury. And Pierre Turgeon was fantastic for the Islanders. That was a great trade for the Islanders. The problem with Pierre Turgeon is that at the tail end of the 93-92 season, the guy couldn't stay healthy, and it affected the Islanders, and it affected the Islanders at the last time they made the playoffs to possibly make a run for a Stanley Cup because of the injuries Pierre Turgeon was holding. So
yeah, and it's a major frustration. There's a reason we're talking about it. What, 20 years later now? Yeah, 20 years on the dot later. It's chilling, but you know what? And I wasn't alive for 93 to put it in context. So
I was,
up until 2016, I was holding on to the Sean Bates penalty shot. That was, kind of the closest.
He was there too, by the way. I met Sean Bates and Webb. I met him there, Sean Webb. He was there. I mean, a lot of those guys are nice guys. They're really, really cool, down to earth guys. They weren't much of players until they were Islanders. And even when they were Islanders, they weren't much of players. So, I mean, it's so funny because what was it? I think it was 3 years ago. I went to the draft and went out after the draft, and Zygmunt Palffy Ziggy was working with an agent, a Russian agent, where he is bringing in players to come and obviously work with this agent that he is working with. I guess it's his own agency, or they're partners in this agency. And I saw Ziggy at the bar. I walked up to Ziggy and I introduced myself. And I will say this: when it comes to talking hockey, and he talks English fluently, very down to earth, and he loves his beer. Okay, he loves to, like Speedy, loves to test beer. He must have drank like 3 or 4 different beers when I was in Vancouver. But down to earth, and he knows hockey very, very well. And it was so very interesting what he said about the Islanders and the transition of the New York Islanders and where the organization was going. He said, the one thing Lou does is he defines the defensive side of the puck, and he always, for some reason, knows what goaltender is going to be consistently there for the future for a significant amount of time. Everywhere he went, or everywhere he's been, he's built a team around a goaltender, and Sorokin was the guy. And I think if the Islanders make sure that they keep this guy happy, I think Sorokin will be the goaltender for the next 10 years over there, and he'll give him a chance to win a Stanley Cup. There's no question he will.
I absolutely pray that is the case, because you look at the Islanders over the last 20 years and compare that directly to the Rangers. What was the major difference between the Islanders and Rangers? Rangers had Henrik Lundqvist. The Islanders, aside from Rick DiPietro, they had a laundry list of goaltenders. They never had the franchise guy.
Yeah.
Not since him.
Yeah.
Not since Billy Smith,
Smith,
really.
Yeah.
So this is such a major milestone in where the Islanders are going. Listen, Sorokin is, and I'm not one to pick favorites. I'm really not, but something just stands out about him. I admire his play. I admire his focus. And he's an athlete where it's a privilege to watch him in person, to see the maneuvers that he makes in net, to see his reflexes. It's insane. And let's be honest, he's the reason the Islanders made the playoffs.
Right.
He's the reason the Islanders lasted 6 games against Carolina. He's the reason that Game 6 even went to overtime.
Mm-hmm.
The Islanders need that franchise goalie, that years long, just that rock. And like you said, that's what Lou is known for. And I'm so happy they finally got there. And it's not to knock the Islanders goalies of the past, because even 2013, Evgeny Nabokov with that series against the Penguins, he was awesome. Thomas Greiss in 2016, of course, Robin Leonard, he got Long Island tattooed on his neck. He is remembered quite fondly, but they weren't the guy.
Right.
And this is such a change in culture. And it comes at a time when they finally have the arena monkey off their back. They're home for good. It feels slowly but surely, but it feels like they're building the pyramid of success, or at least the commitment is there. Whether or not it comes to fruition, who the heck knows? But it feels like a commitment to finally win. Like, I mean, I've never experienced this much hope with the New York Islanders in my lifetime.
So moving
I really have not.
Moving on to the Yankees now. We've seen the Yankees have a lot of injury issues so far this season. Aaron Judge, most recently going on the IL for the second time already this year, was playing great before that. What are your impressions so far with the Yankees this season with the injuries and also the controversy with a lot of the sticky substances?
Well, first I'll say, what's going on with the Yankees. It's so frustrating that they are third in the AL East when they're fifth in the they're fifth, right? Fifth in the American League.
They're a wild card team.
And good on Tampa Bay. Hats off to them for the start that they had, almost at 50 wins now, which is incredible. But it seems like the Yankees are almost always getting themselves in this position where they're just gunning for the wild card, where the wild card will do. And again, they happen to be in an extremely competitive division. Last time we talked, did anyone say that they had the Orioles for being second in the
Actually,
AL?
we've had a lot of.
You did at the start of the season. Errol did at the start of the season.
Yes, I did. I thought the Orioles were going to be really, really good this year. I think their farm system is amongst the league's best, and I expect the Orioles to be elite for the next 5 to 6 years. So you'll see Tampa. They'll start to recharge again. They're having a good season. There's no question they are. But the Yankees are going to be there. But the Baltimore Orioles, I think. Boston obviously is going to rebuild. They got to build their farm system up, but they will get there. I think Boston has some good young players in their farm system. And Toronto, another team that's built by trading away old pieces and bringing in these rookies and these young arms. And now they're finally starting to come up. And we're seeing some of the young talent that they have. So I think Toronto and Baltimore are the teams to watch, but you can't count out the Yankees because the Yankees have.
I'm not counting them out.
And Volpe is the real deal. And I think that kid Bauer is another good bat that the Yankees landed. I didn't think Bauer's going to be as good as he's shown so far as a youngster, but he's another guy that can give you 25, 30 home runs.
And listen, you want to talk about, the current Yankees injury situation. Well, it feels like, and this is something that this group is, quite versed in, next man up, where you have your Volpes, where you have your Bowers step up, take over, and show why they can be the next generation. Harrison Bader too. I mean, that I am so happy he worked out so well with the team. I know he's been injured.
Can't stay healthy. Yeah.
That's a frustration, but overall, I mean, listen, give him a full season, see what happens.
He's had one. We're worried about it. This is his second stint on the injury list. And look, hey, listen, it was a good trade because Jordan Montgomery's still pitching very well for St. Louis. So
he's the only one. The rest of their staff stinks.
I mean, so there's a lot of interest in on the way everybody has attacked Brian Cashman on some of the moves that he's made. But a lot of these guys a lot of these offensive players or everyday players have transitioned into good players. So I never question. I question the Yankees when it comes to pitching and bringing in pitchers, but I don't question when he brings in players.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I mean, there have been some good moves. I mean, my thoughts on Cashman is it almost kind of feels like, like Joe Torre in 2008. Yeah, the standard's extremely high, but that's the standard. If a championship is not won, perhaps I don't know. Perhaps it's time to reevaluate everything.
I don't think. Listen. It's not easy to win an NBA championship. It's not easy to win an NHL championship. It's not easy to win an NFL championship, and it's not easy to win an MLB championship. But out of all the sports, it's easiest to win the basketball championship. I think the hardest is hockey and then baseball. those are the hardest. So I think, and I see Jeff right over here. Injuries don't matter. Earl said so last night. First of all, I said injuries for teams that have talent and have a good bench doesn't hurt as much. And a team like the Yankees, how many injuries the Yankees have had year in and year out, even with Aaron Boone, and they are a playoff team and they find ways to win. So, Jeff, you sit here and you attack me, and you could post up whatever you want because you're a clown, but you're never right. And you sit here and you call the show and you attack and you like to give us your rubbish. I'm not going to say it on air, but when it comes down to it, you have something to say whenever we speak about New York sports. But guess what? We watched the Celtics completely bomb when they were one of the best teams in the NBA. We watched the Bruins, who had the greatest season in NHL history, absolutely bomb in the first round against this Florida Panther team. So please, dude, don't even talk. Your team stink too. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for you, Alex. By the way, we are talking to New York Post feature reporter Alex Mitchell. He covers the Yankees. He's a big Islander fan. Recently interviewed Aljamain Sterling, Ray Longo, and Matt Sarra. So before we finish up with baseball, my question for you with the MLB, you look at the Yankees and you look at the American League as a whole, and there's a lot of transition. I thought Seattle was going to take steps back this year because I just think they were overrated. They made a move for Castilla. Everybody was like, this guy's going to be great. This team's going to be great. And they have absolutely bombed so far this year. I thought Texas was going to take a step up. They have. What have you seen in the American League that has surprised you this year?
Honestly, I would say the Baltimore Orioles. And, I've got to confess, I can't keep as close an eye on baseball like I used to, just changes with the job and everything. But, I really did not. I foresaw them coming together. I didn't expect it to be so soon. Texas jumping up, it almost feels like it's almost like a signing bonus. When you get the nice stadium, all of a sudden you get really, really good. Isn't it funny how fate kind of works its magic that way? Or
absolutely
perhaps a home Super Bowl victory for
unless you're the Marlins and you tried the year before.
The Marlins, another show. Oh
God. And it excites me when the AL East is competitive. It excites me early in the season, and then in August, it kind of, it drives me crazy, being former Yankees reporter turned still, obviously, I follow the game extremely close. But I like it. I like especially when the small markets like Baltimore show, because, let's go back. What is it, 11 years now? You remember the Yankees Orioles ALDS?
Of course, yes. With Manny Machado.
Man, I would say that is the most exhilarating playoff series I remember the Yankees being in, where it was just evenly matched, and then Raul Ibanez just calls game, and he just...
Another big pickup by Brian Cashman, by the way.
Yeah, that was... I mean, would they have won the ALDS without him that year?
No.
Who would? Yeah, I don't think they would have either. If the Ibanez game doesn't happen, who the heck knows the direction that goes in? But my point being, when divisions are competitive, it's just that more thrilling. And it's, I'm not a Baltimore hater. I've never been. Of course, if it comes down to Yankees Orioles, you pull for the Yankees. But I'm happy to see that they've recovered because 2020, 2021.
Yeah.
They were not it. Those birdies could not fly, and now they're back. And
well, you suck so long. You have to, with all those draft picks that you've had over the years. They've had the top 3 pick almost every single year for like 5-6 years. Eventually, you're going to get good players. I mean, the Braves did it, and now the Braves are they're just overly stocking, and the Dodgers are overly stocking. Yeah, they're just they're oiled machines. And I could say that about the Yankees too. Everybody wants to take shots at the Yankees. The Yankees can't find a pitcher, but they have brought players in. Every 10 years, the Yankees have 2 or 3 youngsters that they bring up that really become the core of those organizations. So, and they have 2 guys right now that I think are going to be the future core of these organizations. And one, Aaron Judge, who's still there. He's 31 years old, still has a lot of baseball to play. And the other one is Anthony Volpe, who I think has shown me in certain games that this kid could be very special. Derek Jeter was crap his first year in 95. It was the 96 season. Everything started to click in. Yeah. And I think the same thing with Anthony. I think Anthony's a better all-around player than Derek was. He's got the speed. He's got the ability with the power. Anthony Volpe can give you 30 to 35 home runs in a season.
The other thing about Volpe, you got to remember, and I don't know if this was necessarily the case for Jeter and the 96ers, who kind of all came up together and they influenced each other, but, he has real mentors on that team. He's got Judge, he's got LeMahieu, he's got Stanton, he's got a tremendous pool of experienced seasoned talent that can make him better too. And I think that is, the people you surround yourself make you better or worse. Let's call it what it is. And he's got a lot of top tier talent who can expedite the learning curve
if they can stay healthy. I mean, they got Carlos Rodon.
Stay healthy. It's it's a conversation on the bus.
Yeah.
Do this with your swing, not that, or just kind of showing them the ropes of how to live life as a professional ball player. I think that the behind the scenes go a long way with that.
Alex, I want to ask you a question.
Yes.
When you saw the Yankees land Rodon, okay, and everybody thought, wow, the Yankees got one of the best left-handed pitchers in baseball. They have Garrett Cole, one of the best right-handed pitchers in baseball. You have a 1-2 punch. They're going to be a hard team to beat, okay? We have not seen Mr. Rodon on the mound not once yet this year. And that, to me, worries me. As good as he is, and listen, if he comes back in the second half of the season, lights out, and he's a big part of the Yankees run in the playoffs, I don't care. But if he doesn't, I mean, you're talking about the Yankees. They just don't get it right with these pitchers. They never do.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, because in the back of my mind, I go to the Michael Pineda situation.
Oh,
I know I don't want to evoke that. I really don't. But and it's the same thing, like the DiPietro effect. Whenever
don't mention him. Don't you mention that mother? You know what?
Let's not be named. It's like mentioning the Dark Lord Voldemort. But
he is the Dark Lord.
After these experiences, you can't help it. But it's you wince. It's like, is this happening again? And I think it's too soon to tell in the Rodon case. But again, I've been there before.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going to happen? And I know that DP perhaps was not the wisest investment in the.
I can't stand the
Islanders.
SOB. Known him a long time, off the ice, on the ice. Me and him don't like each other. If I ever saw him in person, and you gave me 5 minutes with him, I'd make him scream uncle more times than you ever could believe. Okay, I don't have any respect for the guy. I'm not going to get too far into this because we're interviewing you. So as everybody knows, we are talking to New York Post feature reporter Alex Mitchell.
Fair enough. Well, I was going to say he signed an autograph for me in the 6th grade.
Well, good. And you know what I would do with his autograph stick? I would stick it where the sun doesn't shine. Okay,
it was a hat, but I already have one of those on. So. But I appreciate the thoughtful suggestion.
I think my autograph's worth more than his.
So before you and Errol get into the UFC stuff, I just want to ask, 'cause I know you're a big food guy too. You were having a lot of good food stories the last time we had you on the show. Any interesting ones in the last 7 months since the last time we've had you on?
Some interesting food stuff. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a new place you got to check out, but something for sure that I'm very proud that I covered. Things are changing in New York City, and we're seeing the demise of the dollar slice. And that's sad. I understand. Okay, maybe you got to drop $2-3 to get a slice of pizza. But what we're seeing, and this is something that I wrote a saucy little feature on, is the rise of the $5 slice, and that is something. Myself personally, I can't get on board. I'm all for good and gourmet pizza. My favorite pizza in New York City is from a very rather high-end restaurant, Cafe Fiorello. That's certainly, not your dollar slice, but you need a tier system. You need a tier system of pizza. You can't just have the benchmark. And this is what we used in the headline. We called it the benchmark. The $5 slice is becoming the benchmark of New York City. And people who don't live in the areas of like these high end, and I don't want to name names here because I don't want to seem like I'm poo-pooing the food, because it's the pizza's delicious. It's just like, is this a $5 investment for one slice? If you're trying to have lunch, say you're a hungry big dude like myself, you're spending $15 on 3 slices of a regular pie, man. You know, I sense a great disturbance in the force there. I really do. And I understand it's complicated, and supply chains from COVID and international situations have made the situation very dire. But there's got to be a gosh darn medium. I'll do $3. I'll do $3.50 even. When you encroach in the $4-5 territory,
everything's so expensive, man. It
is, and it almost it feels like it's expensive because it can be expensive.
You could take a dump on a pizza and they sell and people will buy it. Okay, honestly,
that's true. The right Instagram influencers get behind it, and all of a sudden,
anything kinky, right? 2 girls, 1 cup. We were talking to New York Post feature reporter Alex Mitchell. Let's get into some at Mixed Martial Arts, and you interviewed Aljamain Sterling, a guy that I've known for a very long time. I give him a lot of credit. I do believe that his 2 fights with Peter Yan could have went either way, especially the second one. I think Peter Yan won. But the Dillashaw fight, he absolutely won. And even the Cerudo is washed up. He's not the same fighter he once was. But I mean, he even took shots at Dana White after the Cerudo fight. He says, now it's time to open up your pockets and stop paying me. I am the champion. I am the rightful champion. I am the bantamweight. And the bantamweight division is probably one of the best divisions right now in mixed martial arts. When you interviewed Aljamain, what were your thoughts? Did you hear the confidence in him? And do you think that he really believes he's one of the best pound for pound fighters right now in the UFC?
I think that what you see with Aljo is definitely what you get. And what we talked about was really kind of his life, his upbringing. I know you mentioned that, you knew him in his early phases. Now, did you know him on the island or back when he was upstate?
I actually fought in the Luongo and Sarah Gym. I've known him when he started. And him and his team of, partners are very big into real estate out here in Long Island. He's doing pretty well in buying and selling houses and all that other stuff. So he's an entrepreneur, and he knew that fighting isn't going to take him to higher heights when it comes to money. He needed another way into opening up avenues where he can bring in a pretty good money. He comes from a family that doesn't have anything. And, when you see somebody as gritty as he is, and a guy that never was handed anything, it's an amazing story when you see where he came from and how he crawled up to be the bantamweight champion of the UFC.
Yeah, and that's really what we focus on when I spoke with him, is where he came from. And he grew up in Uniondale, Roosevelt, one of 19 siblings. He mentioned he had a very hard home life, and
100%, yeah.
And in high school, wrestling is really, as he described it, he said wrestling saved his life.
Yep.
And he is as grateful and humble as he is confident. And when I spoke with him, it was in the Longo Sarah Gym in Garden City. It was right after he had been sparring with Merab.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, he just did 25 minutes, whole simulated match and everything. He's on the ground still catching his breath from everything. And he really, that's when, you could tell how authentic he was being. And it was confidence, but it was very grounded. That's the way I would describe him. And, I still said, I was like, you tweeted that you think, second round knockout of Henry. And he says right away, absolutely. So there is that,
confidence.
I appreciate not just what he did in just speaking to me very unrefined, opening up about his life, about getting into fighting, about his, about what an influence John Jones was on him, and how he came to Long Island, and how Long Island has really, really rallied around him. And to give you a story about this, there's a little bar in my town where, he also lives now, Massapequa.
Mhm.
It's called Johnny McGorry's.
I know where that is. Yep.
And every time Aljo steps in, he is just, everyone loves him. Even the people who know nothing about UFC. He's just a very likable guy, and you admire what he's come from, the attitude that he's had. Again, confidence, but that he knows, he's seen both sides of life, and he's never really taken anything for granted. And people love him for that. There's a reason Nassau County had a parade for him where everybody came out. He's a very likable guy in that
Yes,
regard.
yes.
And after he beat Cejudo, and I was at the fight, it was my first UFC event I've ever been
Really?
to.
Good for you.
It was really, really
Did you
exciting.
cover it? Were you invited to be covering it?
So my feature ran actually the day of the fight. So my coverage was done. I'm sure if I wanted a press pass, I could have gotten it, but I just wanted to go as a fan, see Matt Frivola fight, the knockout over Drew Dober in the first round. That was unbelievable stuff. That was very exciting. But no, I just went as a spectator for that one, and I'm going to be going up to Boston for the next one as a spectator. But who knows? Actually, I don't know what I'll be going up in what capacity. But right now, me and a colleague who's a very big UFC fan, we want to make the trip again, and I have a feeling a lot of local people will too. But
I'm
actually,
bringing back my my mixed martial arts show. I've kind of put on hold my partner. We had one of the better shows, on social media called Caged in MMA. My partner had a heart attack, and he's not coming back. So a lot of people have reached out to me and asked me, when am I bringing back the MMA show? It's been on hold for over a year now. So I spoke to Speedy about it, and I am bringing back my MMA show. I'm going to do it once a month, where I'm going to get all my content out for the UFC, Bellator, boxing, and I'll have a lot of good special, special, I guess you could say, personalities that are going to join me throughout different shows. So it is a funny show. When it comes to quality of understanding mixed martial arts and fighting, I know just as much about mixed martial arts as I do with all the other sports. So the knowledge and understanding of where I think mixed martial arts is going, which, by the way, I don't think it's in a good place. I've been saying that for the last year. I think mixed martial arts and the way Dana White is running the organization right now, and Dana knows how to make money. He understands how to bring in the endorsements, and he knows what is going to sell to the public. The fact that Conor McGregor is still trying to get back into the octagon, the fact that John Jones has been out of mixed martial arts for 4 years because he was trying to get into the heavyweight division when he could have fought 2 years ago, but the UFC was just trying. They didn't want him to fight Ngannou. They did not want him. I don't care what Dana White says. Oh, if John Jones fought him, he would have beaten him. He knows damn well it could have went either way. And I just think John Jones, I believe John Jones wasn't really up for fighting him. So, and that's just my opinion. But I think that the way mixed martial arts is right now, they're trying to climb again. And boxing, there's just so many good fighters coming out of nowhere now in so many different classes. Even the heavyweight division right now, it's open. There's a couple of really good heavyweights that not only that are in and they're dominating, but there are guys that are coming up that could be the next big thing. There's a guy that is, I think 6'1". He hits like Tyson. I forget his name. But my friend was telling me a little bit about him the other day, and I watched a couple of, bits and fights of him. This kid he's a Mexican fighter, and he is the body tone of Tyson. He's a heavyweight. So it's very interesting where boxing is going, and there's more money involved in it. And that's why a lot of these guys are starting, all these MMA fighters, they're retiring and they're going into boxing because they know there's a little bit more money to be made there, even if they're on a card that is garbage,
Yeah, no, you bring up an interesting point about the future of MMA. And when you look at someone like Aljo, it's like, why not give him the opportunity to keep trying to take over, bring a real new, fresh face? And he's proven 3 times now that he's worthy of being the champion.
Alex, why do you think the UFC bought WWE? Why do you think that happened?
I mean, why did Live in the PGA just merge?
There's
You
a
know,
reason. The way Dana White looks at it is all these fighters, all these popular fighters, when they retire, they want another avenue to make money and where they can endorse them. They know they bring Conor McGregor into the mix, from the mixed martial world into the WWE with his comedy and his craziness. He is going to put fannies in the seats. They know they're going to make their money back. And in that category of the way the UFC is trying to work, they're trying to find ways to make more money because they're not making enough with their events and they're fighting extravaganzas. And I think that's why they bought the WWE, because a lot of these guys, John Jones, Conor McGregor, they put fannies in the seats. They go to the WWE, they'll put fannies in the seats, even if it's fake.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I would go see Conor McGregor pulling some theatrics. I mean, so much aside from what he does in the octagon, the before and the after, and the throwing stuff at buses, that is, that feels.
I was there, by the way. I was there.
You were there for that?
I was there. Yeah.
My
And
goodness,
I actually went back and forth yelling at him after the situation happened. And Connor took shots at me on social media. The whole, Nate Diaz thing. It was the second fight with the bottle throwing. I was at the press conference when he was throwing it. I said something to one of his tally guys that follow him and practically lick his ass. I said something to him over there, and they started with me, and it almost turned into a fight. They had to push me out of so me and Connor have gone back and forth. I respect his personality and what he brings to entertain people. I think he's an ass. And I don't care what he is, what everybody else says he is, what I've seen of him. I think he's a total moron, and he needs to learn how to respect people, women, men, whoever, because he doesn't respect anybody but himself.
I
off air, I'll send you some of the posts that he gave. He posted up on Twitter with him and his boys on me and taking shots at me. I never went back at him. I don't have to go back and forth at him on social media. I don't need to. Okay, if you're going to talk about little me after you sell your whiskey company for $350 million, then you got a problem. And any day he wants to sit down or he wants to get into a ring, all 170 pounds of him to my 230. Any day he wants to do that, I have no problems doing it.
So Alex, you literally brought up Ricky Pietro and Conor McGregor in the same interview, two of Errol's 5 least favorite athletes.
Mm-hmm. You guys got to give me this list in advance next time, because I have to hit the other 3 now.
All right, Spencer Rattler's in there too. John Tavares, and I think Steph Curry would probably be his 5.
Yeah.
Okay, well, John Tavares. I mean, although I gotta say, I feel like it's time to move on from the breakup. The Islanders were the clear winners of the Tavares trade.
They got nothing. There was no trade. There wasn't a trade.
I meant signing. But
he screwed them.
Did he though, or did he screw himself?
Well, just think about this way, Alex. You get nothing for what? A 5-time All-Star who was the face of the organization, that told the organization when they sat down with him after the All-Star game, before the trade deadline, and saying, listen, we're thinking about moving you. What are your thoughts to it? Do you plan to re-sign with us? I want to be an Islander for the rest of my career. I have every reason to come back here. And then as soon as he became a free agent, there was not even a thought that he was going to stay with the Islanders. Okay. His wife, or his fiance at the time, was over there getting and interviewing for a job in Toronto for a nursing job. Everybody heard about this when this was going on, and he still denied that he was leaving the Islanders. The guy is a prick. Okay. And that's what he is.
There's no doubt it was ill executed. And I'm not a JT fan. I want to just be abundantly clear about that. And you're right. If he were a little bit more honest with his intentions, perhaps it could have been something mutual where it's no hard feelings and the Islanders got something in return. But look, the reality is he just won his second playoff series ever in his life, whereas the Islanders have had 2 marches to the Stanley Cup Conference Final, Eastern Conference Final. And he was not the captain of that team. He was he was on losing teams in Toronto, and ironically, it's the team that he defeated as an Islander in 2016 who brings him back down. And you know what else is actually something really, really crazy about that 2016 team, Florida Panthers and specifically, is Jaromir Jagr at the end of his career. His last loss, or the Islanders' first playoff win in 23 years, is against the Panthers and Jagr.
Yep.
Go back to 1993. It was against the Penguins and Jagr, which is just some weird full circle moments in sports. There really are that just you can't describe. But listen, I'm with you. Everyone. He was not a popular guy on Long Island come 2018, come 2019. It's my personal feeling. He did what he did. He knows how it affected how he appears. He knows how it affected his career. Yes, he's a captain again. He plays, as he described it, his childhood dream. But is he closer to winning a Stanley Cup?
No, he'll be playing for another team and another organization next year, because they're going to start moving on from half of those players because, honestly, they're not winning. So they're built to lose. They have no goaltending, and their defense is non-existent in the playoffs. I don't know why anybody thought, even with the moves that they made at the trade deadline, where everybody's, oh my God, this team is as good as the second best team, second most talented team in the Eastern Conference. And both Boston and Toronto didn't go. I mean, Toronto made it to the second round for the first time in 25 years. Okay. And then they get completely run over by the Florida Panthers. I think they got swept.
They lost in 5,
four to one.
Yeah.
So I mean, and John Tavares, he was the only win that they had, I think, in that series was John Tavares' game-winning goal. So I think that was the only goal he had in that whole series, too.
Sounds about right. So, Alex, the other thing that the Islanders didn't do that John Tavares did is was part of a team that lost to a Zamboni driver.
That's true too.
That's true too. Hey, that's an awesome sports story, though.
Yes.
That really is. I mean. That David Ayers, that was his name, right?
Yes.
That's so cool. That's just, I mean, how would you feel if, maybe down here it wouldn't be a Zamboni driver, but how awesome would that be if you just walk past the park and if you're in Queens and the Mets are like, we need an extra guy tonight, you got your cleats or something like that. Like, that's just, I don't know. That's what makes
Daniel Vogelbach in the lineup.
Oh, man. Geez. But actually, while we're talking about Queens and the Mets, I'm gonna give you a little food tip. I don't know the last time either of you have been to Citi Field, but
last year's for Old Timers Day.
I was just there, actually.
Have either of you ever spent either time before or after a game in a little place called Flushing, Queens?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So I'm not new to this then.
No.
Fair.
I've been there plenty of times. So, yeah.
Have you ever been to 39 Kings Cafe off Prince Street?
Yes, I have.
All right, my man. This is the first time I've ever actually spoken to someone
Really?
who doesn't think I'm crazy when I say this.
No, go ahead.
No, I love the Chinese food over there.
No,
it's the hallmark.
My sister for years lived off of Flushing, and I was all over Main Street for when I would go and visit my sister. We would walk all over the streets of Flushing. So we tried Chinese and Italian, and I'll tell you this: there's a couple of really good Italian restaurants off of Flushing. So there's Zito's over there at Flushing. So. There's a place called Zito's. It isn't. I will say this: the owner of the place is Mexican, but it's actually good pizza. So
actually, some of the best pizza I've ever had, and they have a sign out of their location in Astoria, right by my old apartment off Ditmars Boulevard, Mia Pizza, and they say
yes.
Proudly, I forget if it says proudly Mexican made or proudly Latino made, but they're advertising like they're challenging, they're challenging the Italians. They're saying, "Bring it on, man!"
Yes.
That might actually end up being a pretty cool feature article.
There you go, Alex. Maybe I'll be a part of it. You can mention me, okay? Me.
Carol's gonna set up pizza for you.
That's right.
But yeah,
we got to go. We'll have to go and get a couple of slices of pizza when I come out there.
I'm so down for that.
All
Or
right,
if we
man.
want
So
to do
we'll be in touch.
for sure. And if we want to do a nice little sit down meal out by Flushing,
100%, man.
there's always Parkside right by Corona Ices.
Oh yeah,
Love that place.
I like that
And
place. Too.
James Gandolfini once ate there, so
Yes.
that's my benchmark.
May rest in peace. So,
Good old
anyways,
Tony.
Alex, keep up the good work. Keep doing what you're doing, man. It's great stuff, and we'll be in touch. I'll be in touch, and we'll get together soon, man. And we'll have you on soon, as always.
Absolutely, it's always a pleasure with you guys.
Alex Mitchell, fantastic. He is. Brett Siegel knows his NBA. Alex knows his baseball. He knows his hockey. He knows, and you want to know something? They are fans. And I see Jeff. He says, "Oh, another New York fan who doesn't want to put down any of his teams." Listen, I know a lot of people all over social media, or even sending me their emails. They tell me, stop talking about this when you're always about your teams. I am not. The first thing is we talk all sports. If it's a story, we're talking about it. The fact is that we're based out of New York, and both of us are New York bred. I mean, Speedy is a Connecticut guy, but he grew up a New York fan. So of course we're going to talk about those teams when it drives. A lot of the people that follow us on Twitter and Instagram are New Yorkers. So they want to hear our thoughts about the New York sports. So, but we talk about everything. As a matter of fact, the first story that we got into, the first monologue, was Chris Paul.
Right.
And really haven't gotten into anything else. So we have about an hour. So we might have to add a little bit more to it because I want to get through all these stories because there's a couple of big stories that we really never got into. But two really good guests. We got into a lot of NBA and a lot of baseball and hockey. So thank you to Brett Siegel, as always, and our friend Alex Mitchell, who's doing a great job for the New York Post. Now, the Damian Lillard thing. And I know people are going to sit here, and I know Boston's a good fit, and the Knicks and the Nets. And he already said that, well, who is it? He wants to play for the Nets, and who else? Miami. He's not going to Miami, okay, because Miami is in cap hell, and they just gave Tyler Hero $100 and some odd million contract, and he is going to be there for a while. They're going to lose some of their pieces. They might lose Caleb Martin in the offseason because they might not be able to afford him. Jimmy Butler is making a lot of money. Their Bam Adebayo just got paid, 2 years ago for $190 million. I don't think they have the money to get Damian Lillard unless they trade away Jimmy. And is it an even swap? I think Damian Lillard has not produced in the playoffs. Whenever he made in the playoffs, he didn't do enough to move on with his team. He's had some talented teams with CJ McCollum and
Aldridge.
Yes, Aldridge and Nurkic and all these other guys. He's had good players, but he couldn't get over the hump. And now he wants to come to the Nets. Why would he want to go to the Nets? And I know Brett's trying to pump up the Nets because I'm sure he just can't stand the Knicks. But even if he went to the Nets, what are they, a top 4, top 5 team? They only were a top 4, top 5 team this year is because they had 2 superstars on a team. Damian Lillard is not enough to jump a lot of these teams that are getting better. They're not going to be better than Philadelphia. They're not going to be better than the Knicks because they don't have enough depth.
And they're still going to have to trade a lot of draft picks.
The Celtics, I mean, the Celtics are much better than they are. Milwaukee is much better than they are. And Milwaukee has got a lot of decisions to make. So Damian Lillard says he would be interested in playing for the Heat and Nets if the Blazers decide to trade him. Dame says he would like to remain in Portland if they are competitive next season. Lillard would make $45.4 million this season or next season and has a player option worth about $48.78 in 2024. Lillard can't be traded until July 9th after the start of the NBA free agency market. Lillard mentioned Bam Adebayo and Mikal Bridges as the 2 players that have him interested in playing in Miami and Brooklyn. You want to play with Bam Adebayo? I mean, come on, guys. What is he, nuts?
Last season, Lillard averaged 32.2 points per game, 7.3 assists per game, and 4.8 rebounds per game. Last season, Lillard also had a 46.3 field goal percentage, 37.1 three-point percentage, and a 91.4 free throw percentage. I will say this. Damian Lillard is getting up there in age. And Portland is not going to move him unless they get a significant amount of, I really believe, draft stock from him. I'm talking about 4 first-round draft picks. And you're going to have to give a starter up. He keeps talking about Mikal Bridges. If he gets traded to the Nets, what do you think Portland's going to want? Mikal Bridges. He is the best player right now, in my eyes, on the Nets. Who are they going to trade? Now, they could trade some of those picks that they got from Phoenix, because that might be interesting to Portland. But Portland has a bunch of, first-round draft picks that they've built up and stocked up too over the last couple of years with the McCollum deal and all the different things that they've made. So I still sit here today and I say, where does Damian Lillard fit? Now, Jeff is right. He could be traded to Boston. But are you willing to trade Jaylen Brown? Okay. And that's what you're going to have to give up. Jaylen Brown. Because their first-round draft picks are going to be late first-round draft picks. Those are really second-round draft picks. Boston's too good. So they're going to have to give up one of their top 2 guys. That's what they're going to want. Portland's going to want a piece that they can build around. And being that Lillard is making about $60 million a year, he's the highest paid player in the NBA. I think next year he's making 45 or 48.
Yeah, because most of his money came off this year.
Right. Still, you're looking at, if you trade for the Nets, Mikal Bridges. If you trade with a team like Miami, you're probably looking at Jimmy Butler and maybe a Tyler Hero.
Yeah, they're going to have to trade Hero at least, because they're not going to be able to make the money work.
They're going to have to trade both of them,
probably, because they're going to, at least if they keep Jimmy Butler, they might have to take on some of the money too, which means you have to give up extra players, which I don't know if they're going to want to do either.
I just don't know how that works. I do see Lillard being traded, but I don't see to either one of those teams. I just don't.
I think the only way the Nets are able to is if somehow they land a free agent that entices him. But
I think a sign-in trade, something like, let's say Dallas wants to sign and trade Kyrie Irving. I think that could make sense.
What about Minnesota with Towns? Something like that. He plays with Edwards and Gobert.
Anthony Towns, but I think Anthony Towns has already come out and said that it's either Minnesota or New York. I've heard a couple of people say that if he goes anywhere, he wants to come back to New Jersey, the New Jersey area. He grew up a Knicks fan. He grew up in this area. He lost his mom to COVID. He lost a bunch of family members to COVID, and he said he would like to move back out east. And being that he would play for his hometown team, the Knicks, and Leon Rose being his agent all those years, that when he was drafted, I think that's where I would see Karl Anthony Towns going. But the Knicks would have to give up a significant mother load for somebody like Karl Anthony Towns. And is Karl Anthony Towns the piece that they've been missing to win? And I don't think he is. He's not a winner.
Right. And the point guard market is so tricky as it is, because it's, again, like we were saying yesterday with our basketball broadcasters, it's like the pure point guard, there's not many good ones in the league. Like we were talking about it with John Morant. John Morant's a top 3 point guard in the league, talent-wise.
No question.
And there's a big drop-off kind of after him. And Lillard's probably one of the last ones left. And that's what makes the market tricky. Teams are just fading from that concept. And I don't know if there's enough of a market right now. So maybe that's why he's mentioning those 2 teams. But I really only think the Nets have a shot if they can get another free agent, because otherwise you're going to have to trade Mikal Bridges, and that's going to lose value in that trade in Miami. Because they have signed Kyle Lowry and his contract was horrible, they're stuck with him.
I think when you look at the position that Portland is in, they're not going to win with Damian Lillard, and they extended him that contract just to make him happy. I don't believe they thought they were going to keep him there for the 2 years of the contract that they signed him to. I think they were just making him happy, and they plan to move him the year after. The question is, who is willing to give up a significant mother load for a guy like Damian Lillard? And how many years do you think you have Damian Lillard for? Maybe 2? Right. At the top of his game. So you need to be a win now team. The Nets are not a win now team. The Miami Heat are a win now team, but if they have to move Tyler Hero and maybe Jimmy Butler or maybe 2 other pieces, are they a win now team anymore?
Probably not.
Here's another one that's worth considering. Would the Pelicans consider doing it? Maybe for one of their young players, could reunite McCollum and Lillard.
That could be interesting. How about the Lakers?
Yeah.
Anthony Davis. You can move on from Anthony Davis. You trade him, straight up, or maybe a couple other pieces. Yeah, the Lakers trade Anthony Davis and maybe Reed and somebody else for Lillard and maybe two other pieces over there from Portland, and maybe give LeBron James at least another chance for another run with Damian Lillard. I mean, that makes sense. I could see the Lakers doing that. Another team, I don't see any of these young teams that are willing to give up a stock of youngsters or a stock of picks to bring him in. It's a win now team. Everybody keeps talking about the Knicks. I would never trade Jalen Brunson now for him. I would never do it. So even bringing up Jalen Brunson's name in the same conversation as a guy like and Damian Lillard, is he better than Jalen Brunson? Yes, he is.
Yes.
But is he that much better than Jalen Brunson now? I don't think so. And I'm taking the younger guy who's 7 years younger. So, and a guy that you have control of, and he's not making a lot of money for a top 5, top 7 point guard in the league.
Right. And there's no other team with that much amount of draft stock all at the same time besides the Knicks and the OKC Thunder. But the OKC Thunder don't need him because they got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's phenomenal, and they got Josh Giddey, who's a good young one too. So they have no need for anyone like that.
Plus, I wouldn't trade away picks, especially picks that are going to be very, very high. OKC is still on the borderline of a playoff team, so they're going to be a lottery team, and they've got a bunch of picks that are unprotected moving forward in the next couple of years, that some of these teams could be bombs and they could be lottery. They could actually have, I think one of the seasons they could, I think they have 4 first-round draft picks. All of them could be lottery picks. Could you imagine that?
Right. If one team has a bad breakup in any way, I know they have a bunch of picks with the Clippers left still. So if they have some kind of bad breakup,
it's crazy.
Yeah,
it is crazy. Houston too. They've got a load from the Nets. So I think that the Houston Rockets are positioned to be a very good team moving forward. Obviously, Detroit's a team to be reckoned with too. I think slowly with Monty Williams being there, and they overpaid him. There's no question that he did, but I never thought Phoenix should have fired him. And again, Jeff, with his stupid New York crap, we're not even talking about New York teams, but your idiot self is back at it because you're just a moron.
We just mentioned the Nets a little bit, Jeff.
We haven't even talked. We're not even into New York sports, and you're still opening a big fat mouth. But Detroit is a team that you're looking at is you heard it from him. You heard it from Brett Siegel talking about some of the youngsters that they have. He's got Ivy, who really showed in the second half that he could be a player and a player to be reckoned with. Cunningham, if he could stay healthy, that's 2 years in a row he hasn't stayed healthy. And I even like the Wiseman move that they made with Golden State, who started to play well when he got traded. So. And they have a ton of draft stock, and they have a lottery pick this year. So I think the thought of the Eastern Conference growing, and again, Trae Young, I was very surprised Brett thinks that Trae Young is going to stay with the Hawks. I don't believe that. There was a lot of stuff going on in the locker room. One of the reasons why Nate was fired was because of Trae Young, I heard. So I just don't see him sticking around over there. And I would love to get Trae Young on the show and see where he's at and where his head's at. But when you look at that trade with Dallas and Atlanta for Luka, practically for Trae Young, and you try to go back on that, boy, oh boy, did Dallas just absolutely fleece the Atlanta Hawks. They absolutely fleeced them because what Luka is, and everybody's going to say, what did Luka do? Luka took a team in the Western Conference that should have never gone where they were last year, and it could have went to the NBA Finals with a very small talent. The talent was horrible over there. It really was. Jalen Brunson and him.
Even before the trades. No, Snug, he's not going to the Sacramento Kings. Stop trading every point guard to the Sacramento Kings. They don't need one. They have a very good one.
I think when you look at the position that some of these NBA teams are going to really be in the offseason, because honestly, a lot of these teams are in cap hell. And even though the CBA and the number is going up a little bit, it's not a lot, like 8 million, 9 million. It's not going up a lot. I think that it will go up the year after because that's where the new TV deals are going to come in. So
You're talking about maybe 15 to 20 million. So I think what is he saying over here? I don't know what he's saying with
No,
this.
he's not going to the Knicks or the Nets.
I have no
He wants
idea.
to play for the Nets. It doesn't seem realistic unless they get another free agent.
I think Damian Lillard is going to probably go to a Western Conference team that has the talent that they could trade for him. That's where I think he's going. Maybe Chicago. I mean,
yeah,
Chicago would be a nice fit. I mean, Zach LaVine wants out. I mean, you could trade him and DeRozan, and you bring in Damian Lillard, and then you put him with the youngsters in a Donovan type of offense. Maybe he succeeds over there in the Eastern instead of the Western. And if you notice, he wants to go to the Eastern Conference because he believes the East is obviously easier than the West, which I disagree with him, by the way. But I think the East is getting a lot better, and I think
the gap is definitely much closer than the beginning of his career.
Yes, I think also Sacramento. I would agree with you. Sacramento, Snug said the Kings are running 5 points guard offense next year. So I think maybe Damian Lillard to Sacramento. I mean, you could trade him for De'Aaron Fox and maybe another couple of picks. I think that might be a good trade. If Sacramento wants to win a championship, that could be a pretty quick move that they can make to make them a contender. So I don't know, but I think Sacramento will stay where they are.
It's the same thing as the Knicks. Like, why Fox did so well in the playoffs? Why would you want to give up?
I'm
younger
just saying,
guy? Yeah.
Sacramento hasn't been good for many years, and either of the Knicks. But Sacramento might be willing to pull the trigger. I know the Knicks aren't going to do that. Leon Rose is not the type of guy that will do that. But as we've seen, I think he could have had Donovan Mitchell, and he decided not to pull the trigger.
It's ironic. Sacramento needs big men after they've drafted so many big men over the years.
Yeah. Danny Ainge tried to screw the Knicks.
Well, of course, obviously.
He absolutely tried to screw the Knicks, and the Knicks were not biting. Okay, so whatever. But that's the Damian Lillard thing. Dalvin Cook, okay? Jeff was the one that actually brought this up. You see, I don't know why I'm giving this guy any credit because it pisses me the hell off. But I will give Jeff credit because he actually, during one of the shows, I think it wasn't last week, it was a week. Yeah, was it week before or last week? He mentioned that Dalvin Cook could be let go by Minnesota as quick as a week. And now the story is coming out that Adam Schefter reports that the Vikings will release Dalvin Cook if they cannot find a trade partner tonight. The Dolphins are the favorite to sign Cook if he's cut, followed by the Broncos. Cook had an Instagram post with him celebrating celebrating a win. Speedy, you have to fix up the way you move these words. In Miami last season. Since 2019, Cook has the second most scrimmage yards per game among running backs. Only Derrick Henry has more. Last season was the first season Cook played a full season despite being limited in some games. Cook averaged just 17.8 touches per game and 86 yards per game last season, both career lows in totals. I still think Dalvin Cook is one of the top 5 best running backs in the league. And if he goes to teams that could use a speedy running back that could be used out in the flats as a wide receiver, I can see like Miami. I think if Miami adds a weapon like that, they're going to be very dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
Very dangerous. And that's why I think the Jets name is being brought up because they want to make sure that
steal him, yeah.
No, they're not steal him. They want to drive up the price. I don't think the Jets want him. I know all the Jet fans think, oh, Dalvin Cook, why they're interested. They're not interested in Dalvin Cook. Why would they be interested in Dalvin Cook? They drafted Israel, okay, that they really, really like. Breece Hall, they're saying he ran 20, he had his GPS on, he ran 22 miles. 22 miles per hour, I think in a 40 or something, whatever he did in his GPS that Robert Saleh said at his press conference. And Michael Carter, who is on his final year of his rookie contract. There is no reason why they would bring Dalvin Cook in unless they think Breece Hall is not going to be healthy all season long, which they're saying that he will be ready in the first game of the season. So it doesn't make any sense. And by the way, Jeff, because you don't know and you don't read. I'll send you what Speedy wrote to me. It's all out of whack. So Jeff, shut up. You're an idiot. You really are.
Snug, Dalvin Cook's a lot further ahead of Ezekiel Elliott right now.
And Jeff, just so you know, did you go to college? You probably didn't. I would be very surprised if you actually graduated from high school. Do you work actually? No, you're a degenerate gambler. Okay. So you're making fun of my reading skills, but I guarantee you can't read, and I know I can read. So I don't know what you're talking about. And you know what? I don't even know why I'm wasting my time and wasting the little bit of time or left of air that we have to talk about this moron. And if he wants to call the show so I could call him out on his stupidity, you're more than welcome, because you're just a moron.
By the way, Florida does win in overtime, 3-2. So they will be down 2-1. Tkachuk scored with 1:19 to go
Tkachuk
to tie
again,
the game. To tie the game, yeah.
Was it Tkachuk again?
Yeah, I couldn't tell who scored this.
No, it
goal,
wasn't Tkachuk.
But Vegas was up 2-1. A minute 19 left. They tied the game. So another clutch goal for him.
Snug, why don't you just marry Jeff? I mean, I've never seen anybody kiss Jeff's ass as much as you. You might as well stick your head in his ass and lick it, okay? Because the amount of just absolute love that you have for this guy, you guys should marry each other. Honestly, you should get married to one another, because there's such a love fest between you two. It really is. It's just absolutely pathetic, if you ask me.
By the way, it was Carter Verhaeghe who scored the OT winner.
Dalvin Cook, and I'm going to say this nice and sweet. I think that if he becomes available tonight, he will be signed by Miami by Saturday. I don't think he's going anywhere else. He's not going to Buffalo. He's not playing with his brother. Why would he take away snaps from his brother? He's not going to do that. His brother might have a chance to start this year. He really could have a chance if they don't get Derrick Henry. And the thing that makes most sense for Buffalo to land is Derrick Henry. It's a power back that takes away pressure off of Josh Allen, who runs the ball with power. They need a guy that's going to be able to run up the seam. Could you imagine Derrick Henry and Dalvin Cook going into the AFC East? That's just scary. And Breece Hall. I mean, the talented running backs in that division. Even New England has like have a triple.
Yeah, Ramondre Stevenson had a great year last year.
They have a triple death trap over there. Yeah. I mean, they're really good. And they lost Harris in the offseason. And they're still
now he's on Buffalo.
Yeah, well, that's why I question if they're going to go after Derrick Henry.
No, we were saying they should. I don't know if they actually will. It's not the MO of their front office. Just like it's not the MO of the Jets front office to go after Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, it's so very interesting. And again, we can real recognize real. Yeah, real recognize real. Okay, give me a break. Jeff, you think you recognize real. Jeff, you always think you're right when you're not. That's the funny thing. The realest thing is that you two guys are like in love with one another. Honestly, I've never seen two people love each other so much and compliment each other so much, and you guys never even met each other. What? Because you talk on a phone? You guys never even met each other in person, but you love each other. It's pathetic, honestly. Just so you know. NHL rumors. All right. So TSN insider Pierre LeBrun reports that Alex DeBrincat, hold on. I'm going to pronounce it. DeBrincat, after just one season with the Senators, has requested a trade and also has told the Senators 3 teams he'd like to play for. DeBrincat is a restricted free agent, meaning the Senators could give him a 1-year arbitration deal. DeBrincat is 25 years old and had 27 goals and 39 assists this season. TSN insider Pierre LeBrun reports that Pierre, hold on, here it goes, Dubois, okay? Pierre Dubois has no intentions of signing a new contract with the Winnipeg Jets. Reports have mentioned the Canadiens as the team he would like or want to go and play for, as they were a contender, when
short season when they had the flukiest Stanley Cup run of all time.
Dubois is 24 years old and can play both center and wing. He had 27 goals and 36 assists this season for the Winnipeg Jets. Multiple sources have said the Flyers have made Carter Hart available in a trade. The Oilers are the favorite to land Hart. You see, just so you know, you wrote to land the Hart. With the Sabres and the Senators that are also interested. Hart had a 2.94 goals against average and a .907 save percentage last season. The Flyers also recently traded top defenseman Ivan Provorov and are also looking to trade Kevin Hayes. So interesting. Kevin Hayes is not a big deal. I remember when he played for the Rangers. He's a fourth line guy, third line guy at best.
Yeah.
So and Provorov isn't Provorov the guy that with the
gay
rights thing.
It was their best defenseman performance wise, but yeah, definitely.
So I was kind of expecting that to happen. So I also think looking at the picture of this offseason, especially some of these players, these young players that are looking to play for other organizations and other teams, and they're really trying to push their way out to the team that they want to go to. These teams have control of these guys, and I think that if let's say Dubois wants to go somewhere, he's not going to go to the Canadiens. Okay, I don't believe that's where he's going. Dubois is probably going to go somewhere that teams have a significant amount of picks, and they can move to bring in a player like Dubois, who's 25 years old and could actually give you an instant punch in your offense. So I think he's the best one out of all these guys. I think Dubois can play. He's a great center. He can win faceoffs, and he can play wing, and he could be used on a first or second line on any team in the NHL.
Right, and he also hit a little too when he was with Columbus. When Tortorella was there before he got traded to Winnipeg, because he was the one traded for Line A at the time. He actually hit a little bit too. So any team that is looking for that like second line, initially guy to groom around, but he could also be a first line guy as he gets older because he's 24. Like he's going to grow. He was a third overall pick, I think, in the Austin Matthews draft, and still has some upsides left. So any of these young teams that are well built already could definitely take that kind of chance. You could look at any of the young playoff teams in the Western Conference, a team like the LA Kings, a team like Dallas that could be interested in a younger player to help out their offense, because both of them, Dallas was a top heavy offense, but didn't have a lot of great depth besides that. And LA has some good young players, but again, they're not at the complete team. And again, in the Eastern Conference, there's a couple of those teams too that definitely could need offense. We've heard Carolina with all kinds of rumors with a lot of offensive players in the past. The Devils, maybe a team that could be interested in somebody like that. As far as DeBrincat, that market is going to be interesting because a young winger back on the market again. He just got traded to Ottawa and wants to leave, which is surprising because they have a lot of young talent on that team.
There's a lot of good players that are going to be available this offseason. I mean, Patrick Kane, you're probably going to stay away. Jonathan Tames is a veteran player that you can bring in. He's not going to be asking for a lot of money, maybe $5 or even $4.5 million. He's been a captain for the Chicago Blackhawks for many, many years. He's won a couple of Stanley Cups. He knows how to lead. So maybe a Stanley Cup contender, maybe the Florida Panthers or somebody like that could bring him in and help out if they fall short. Ryan O'Reilly, a guy who a lot of teams, including the New York Rangers, could absolutely crave to use. This is a guy, one of the best face-off drawers. Another team that is going to be missing a player this offseason is the Boston Bruins. They might have two guys retiring. Ryan O'Reilly would be a great fit for Boston. I don't know if they're going to have enough money, but there's a lot of good players on this list. Vladimir Tarasenko is another one. James Van Riemsdyk is another guy that's a pretty good player. Max Pacioretty is another guy who missed the season because of injury, but I think he'll be ready for the season. Sean Monahan.
I like him too.
Yeah, he's another guy that played for Montreal, 28 years old, has a tremendous ability, and he can win faceoffs. He's a rugged player. He's a guy that would probably Laviolette. He would fit the Laviolette type of offense.
I wanted the Rangers to trade for him when he was in Calgary at one point. He was very good there, very underrated player.
But if you look at the list, there's a lot of good players on this list. Like I said, Bergeron will probably retire. He's 37 years old with injury, but Tyler Bertuzzi's on this list. There's guys. There's good players. Last year's list wasn't that good.
Right. That's why the trade market was bigger.
Yeah. So this offseason, with the availability of some of these players, I could see a lot of these players switching teams and going to teams that could be contenders. So the NHL offseason is going to be fun to watch, and we'll see how everything starts to fall together in the offseason when the playoffs are over. Congratulations to the Florida Panthers tonight, actually winning game number 3. Maybe make this a series, maybe get this back 2-2, and then it's anybody's hockey series. So I'm interested to see that happen, because I expected this series to be a fun series, and it hasn't been.
You had 7 games. I
Yeah.
remember.
So I'm hoping it's going to be a lot closer than it has shown in the first 2 games. The Yankees place Aaron Judge on the injured list with a sprain in his right foot. Judge hurt himself leaping for an unbelievable catch in right field on the right field fence at Dodger Stadium during Saturday's game. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but it was pretty amazing how he ran through that wall. Judge is hitting .291, 19 home runs, and 40 RBIs with a .404 on-base percentage, and is on a similar pace of his MVP season last season. The Yankees also placed Nestor Cortez on a 15-day DL list, straining his rotator cuff, which, by the way, he's been having problems with since the end of last season because the Yankees used him a lot. Cortez has 11 starts 11 starts this season, has a 5.16 ERA and a 1.3 WHIP and 59 strikeouts, which is a lot. Pete Alonso also left yesterday's game against the Braves after getting hit by a pitch in his wrist. Everybody says that I've read that his MRI today and his X-ray last night came up negative, so he could be day-to-day. The Mets haven't officially placed him on the injured list because he's not going on the injured list, but he is out of the lineup tonight and likely will be out of the lineup tomorrow. Alonso leads the majors with 22 home runs and leads the National League with 49 RBIs. Aaron Judge, they're just trying to protect. They need him for the second half of the season for the run. And the Yankees know they're making the playoffs. I mean, it's going to be very hard for the Yankees not to make the playoffs, even though the AL East is the best division by far in baseball. It's not even close. And what Baltimore is doing, and Toronto is right behind them, and even the Red Sox are not playing that bad of baseball. They're actually playing decent.
No, they're 500. They'd be leading the AL Central.
Yeah, so I just see the way the Yankees are going to get better, because when Carlos Rodon does come into this rotation and that some of the relief pitchers do come back, Loizica and all those other guys, the way King has pitched so far this season, I think the Yankees are going to be in a pretty good position to be a playoff team this year. The question is, are they going to have enough of hitting and hit for average in the playoffs, which they haven't done for the last, 13 years.
Every single matchup of the Astros and every single ALCS, it seems to come up where they strike.
It's been a problem.
So
It's been a problem. That's why they went after a guy like Carlos Rodon. I mean, because they need a guy that can go for tick for tat against those teams with the great pitching and the pitchers that they are actually going to have to play in the playoffs. And the Yankees have had problems hitting against those great pitchers, as well as a lot of teams do, because when during the season, you're playing those second and third and fourth type of pitchers that, you're probably not going to see, not even a second. You see the third, fourth, and fifth guys, and sometimes the sixth guys, and you're not going to ever see them in the playoffs. And if you see them, you're going to see them in the bullpen. Right. So I think when you look at the position that some of these teams are at or are in when it comes to baseball, I just think that even the Mets, I wonder if we've seen enough of Buck Showalter to say that, okay, Buck has taken this team as far as he can. It's on to the next guy. And right. I've been preaching and promoting Mark DeRosa. Okay. I think that he coached the United States team. They had 2 losses in the baseball classic. Right. They went to the championship game. They lost against Japan, which I believe was the favorite going into the tournament. Mark DeRosa deserves a manager job. He's interviewed for like 3 or 4 jobs and nobody's hired him. I think if the Yankees do fire Aaron Boone, I think DeRosa will be the next guy, him or David Cohn. I think those guys are more than qualified for that management job. But so I question if Buck is going to take this team to that next end, and that's a championship end. I think Steve Cohen knows that if Buck doesn't get them to the NLCS this year, I think Buck will be asked to leave going into the offseason. They'll have to bring in a younger guy that they believe could fit this culture of what they're trying to build.
Yeah, it's always a tricky dilemma. We talk about it a lot. You talked about it in the past with the Jets. Like, they always want to bring in a rookie coach, and the Mets were always like that for a while. After Willie Randolph got fired, they always wanted to bring in a rookie manager. They wanted their own
they were
guy.
cheap.
Yeah, and that was a product of the Will funds. And again, some of them had their moments, but again, none of them were overly consistent. Terry Collins was good, which was fine, but besides that, you had to deal with Mickey Callaway, you had to deal with Jerry Manuel, you had to deal with Louis Rojas, who I think got a worse rap for Mets fans than most people, but still wasn't great. And then this year, Buck Showalter, I know people have bashed his lineups last year in the past in certain games, but this year they've just been so consistently bad. Like, he's reluctant to just put these older guys higher in the lineup than they should be. And these younger guys like Alvarez hitting ninth, Beatty for a while, finally is hitting fifth now, but now it took him a while to get him even up there, and it's just not working. Brandon Nimmo, he's kept in the leadoff spot, fine. Alonso, he's kept fourth. Those are the two guys that are hitting, fine. Lindor, yes, he's down for on-base percentage and batting average this year, but he's still going to have to hit him second. But just everything else, it makes no sense what he's doing this year. And the pitching, I'll blame more on the front office. There's the approach should not have been for all these old guys all at once. And the bullpen, it's a little better than last year, but still not great.
I just also look at the majors right now. It's still very early. And again, it's always about the second half and what you're going to do at the trade deadline. And being that the trade deadline is early, since last year, I remember was it before the All-Star?
It was July 31st, a little bit after the All-Star.
Oh, so, and I think it's even earlier this year. So check out when the trade deadline is this year. But it's been very, very early, and I'm making it early. So you have to make a decision on what you're doing with some of these pitchers, or who you're going to put on the trade market. So a lot of these teams are going to have to make a decision really, really early in the season or mid-season on what they're doing with some of these players, or if they're contenders or pretenders. So when's the trade deadline?
August 1st. So it's one day after last year. July 31st was last year.
And when's the playoffs start this year?
October 4th, I think. 5th.
So you're talking about 2 months, and that's a long time. And that's a lot of baseball. You're talking about 30 games a month. That's 60 games.
Right.
So I think baseball and a lot of the teams are going to have to decide really, really early after the All-Star break if they're contenders or pretenders. And in the American League, I know Jeff's waiting to come on, and we'll put him through because I'm sure he has something stupid to say. But we know Tampa is going to be a contender. We know Baltimore is going to be a contender. We know the Yankees and Toronto are going to be contenders. Minnesota and Cleveland and Chicago, even though Detroit's played pretty well, a lot better than I thought. And the Texas and Houston. I don't believe Seattle's going to be a contender this year, and I don't think the Angels or Oakland's been horrible. So it really, we know the National League is open, and it always opens up.
The Dodgers and the Braves are the only good teams in the
But
National
it also opens up in the second half of the season. A lot of teams just get really, really hot in the second half. We've seen St. Louis get hot, and they've made the playoffs when they were in like second to last place. I think the Cubs are a lot better than their record shows. I mean, Milwaukee's a lot better. They've played a lot better than they really are this year. And I think Pittsburgh has had a better season than anybody thought they were going to have too. So a lot of surprises. San Diego is not this bad. They're not.
And they won't be.
Okay, so I expect them to get hot. And Arizona's they have some really good young players. They really are fun.
And
their
pitching rotation is one of the best in baseball.
That and they have I really believe they have the most young talent in the outfield. They're fantastic. They really are. I watched them play on Sunday Night Baseball. What was it, 2 weeks ago? And I watched 2 or 3 innings of them, and they're fun to watch. They're fast. And very well coached. I think Arizona could really surprise a lot of people this year and maybe go all the way to the World Series. Who knows with that talent? But anyways, put them through for a second time.
Welcome back, Jeff.
Speedy, I'm extremely disappointed in you.
And why is that?
Because you asked a perfect question. Never heard a better question asked on this show before. And as the resident level-headed genius on the show, right? Because you're the smartest person on the network, right? You do it all. You ask the smart questions, the intelligent questions. You work the board. You do everything you need for the phones. You're doing it all over there, not just a blowhard, right? And you ask an intelligent question about the sticky stuff the Yankees are using. and you let a couple of New Yorkers not even answer the question.
You know,
They
you're
dodged
lucky
it.
you have an opportunity to speak on this show, buddy. And that's one. Number two, you're not intelligent at all on anything that you say. I give you credit. I give you credit on some of the stupid stuff that comes out of your fat mouth. I let you speak, and I give you an opportunity to speak, and you still talk like a complete moron. Okay.
You let him off the hook, Speedy. You let him dodge the question on why a serial wife abuser who has problems with the sticky stuff. What's the issue there? And you didn't get an answer, did you? Poor journalism. You should have held their feet to the fire and made.
I'm not going to do that to Alex. Alex is a good guy, and he's a funny guy to have on the show.
You need to hold these New Yorkers' feet to the fire and make them confront the truth, which is they are serial cheaters.
Yeah, and so are the Boston fans. So that's all I'm going to say. The Boston fans, they're the biggest rowdy pieces of you-know-what. All right, so and that's all I'm going to say. We've had analysts say it. We've seen it happen. You think that the Boston fans are so sweet and so nice when they're a bunch of asses. They're a bunch of asses, and honestly, a bunch of racists. Bunch of racists. How many players have come out from all different organizations saying how racist they are? They're a racist. It's a racist place. Boston is a bunch of racist people.
Right. Hey, look, you're right. There have been some terrible incidents there. But every time after those incidents, Adam Jones got a standing ovation.
Keep bringing this stupid up, the stupid thing up, Adam Jones.
Those individuals don't represent the entire city. However, you don't see that stuff happening in New York when Alex Verdugo gets hit with a ball, or they're throwing beer bottles at the Cleveland Indians, or a Rangers fan.
And again, those people don't represent the entire city either.
No, and that's why he loves to do it. Just like when I was at the game and they were talking about Soto, and because one player was screaming out and somebody posted it, he says, "You see how rotten New Yorkers are?" How many times have I gone to Boston games I've been to Fenway Park twice, okay, and both of them Yankee games, and hearing the Boston fans yapping about their own players, calling them pieces of garbage. And I'm not going to say what I've heard. In the dugouts, closer to the dugouts when they're losing against the Yankees. So please don't get me started about your Boston fans.
You asked a beautiful baseball question, Speedy.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
It deserved an answer. It deserved an answer.
Yeah.
Because it's an honest question. He got caught twice this year with sticky stuff. Twice.
Mm-hmm.
That seems habitual.
And I'm not going to hold that against Alex, because Alex is a good guy and fun to have on the show.
But that's it. But that's a baseball question. It's a legitimate baseball
question.
All right,
I also asked about the injuries. I didn't ask just about the sticky stuff.
And you can't let him gloss over the problem part, though. You can't do that.
Why? Because the
injuries are a problem, but it was a Josh special. It was a 2-part question.
Yes, it was a Josh special. You're right.
Right. And you didn't get an answer to that part.
True. The only thing I didn't do was bring up a rumor.
Right, exactly. You should have said, I have sources that maybe I've heard something is coming out soon, possibly. Here's a 2-parter.
You're an idiot. You really are a fool. It's so stupid. He attacks everybody. It doesn't matter who they are. They could be any color,
that's
any genre.
Not getting an answer is a legitimate complaint. Would you agree that Speedy, it's a criticism, yes, but I think it's a fair criticism that you didn't get an answer to your question.
In Jeff's defense, Jeff is not the only one that's taking shots at Josh for giving up 2-part questions.
Yeah, we know Carl, who likes to, say those things, and Snug too, because it's like a trickle effect.
Ben does it too, yeah.
It's a trickle effect. Where has Ben been?
He was in the beginning. I didn't see him much after that.
The guy hides, he hides because he knows
Ben's a fine gentleman.
I never said that he isn't, but guess what? And he's another one who sits around. He spoke nothing but high on Aaron Rodgers. And then all of a sudden, Aaron Rodgers goes to the Jets. Oh, we don't need him. Oh, we're better off without him. Get the hell out of here, Ben. Yeah, for 3 years, and I'm an Aaron Rodgers guy, and I've always been, for you to say, oh, we have the best quarterback in the NFL. Blah, 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 blah. We have a chance to win a Super Bowl when they were the number 1 seed in the NFC and all of the NFL. And you were like, oh, we have the best quarterback. Now all of a sudden you don't need him. Get the hell out of here. Go fly a kite somewhere else.
I tend to agree with you on that opinion. Okay, I tend to agree with you. But in defense of Ben, we don't know yet whether they're better off or not. We don't know if Aaron Rodgers is on the downslide and maybe Jordan Love. Like the Packers were better. We thought the Packers were crazy when they got rid of Brett Favre, right? And we were like, oh, that seems crazy. But in the end, they were better off. Correct? So we don't We don't know yet.
If you had a broken thumb and you still throw 3,600 yards and you led the NFC in 27 touchdowns and you only throw 12 interceptions, I'll take that any day on the downside.
Look, I tend to agree with you, but I'm just telling you that this organization transitioned from Favre to Rodgers, and they're trying to replicate that. Let's let it play out before we just say, oh, no, that's not good for them. They should have done this, right? Like, let's see what happens.
That's fine.
I tend to agree with you that losing Aaron Rodgers is a problem, but we don't know yet. Maybe Jordan Love likes it.
That's not why I'm saying it. I'm saying it because I've heard this from a lot of these Green Bay Packer fans, and I have a bunch of them at the hospital that I see all the time, and whenever I see him, he's like, just like Ben. Oh, we don't need him. He didn't want to be here. No, that's not true. Your GM and president wouldn't give him an answer if he's staying or if he's going, and that pissed him off. That had nothing to do with Aaron Rodgers. If it was up to Aaron Rodgers, he'd still be the starting quarterback for the Green Bay Packers.
Right.
But it was because of the GM and the president being as selfish as they were because, hey, you know what? It's Aaron Rodgers, and he arguably is the greatest player to ever play for the Green Bay Packers, but who cares about that? So it was just that he was very disrespected. And if I was Aaron Rodgers,
regardless, I think Ben's a fine human, and same with Carl. I think Carl's a great human too.
Nobody's saying that they're not.
He's got the blinders on when it comes to Mitchell.
Nobody's saying that they're not. What are you trying to say? I'm saying that they're bad people?
No, you were like, where have they been? And I'm just bringing it right back rather than your Aaron Rodgers rant.
My Aaron Rodgers rant, that wasn't a rant. I'm just taking a shot at Ben because for 3 years.
You shouldn't. He's a good human. He's one of your 3 listeners.
3 listeners. Okay, whatever you say, Jeff. I will say this, Jeff, and by the way, as we do preach on all the platforms that we have, and thank you to all the fans on the stream. That's where we accumulate a lot of our fans. We really appreciate everybody, all the truck drivers, everybody that I send out hundreds and hundreds of posts before the show. I really appreciate all the fans that listen to us and tune into us and respect us as much as they do. So
I bet the truck drivers are a big demographic. They all found you from the lot lizard, the beef.
Oh God, you're such an ass, man. You really are.
The lot lizard there referred you, so now that's how all the truckers found you.
No, I will say this: we're growing on Apple. We have like 1.6 million downloads. So I really appreciate everybody that tunes in and gives us the opportunity to entertain them for 3-4 hours every single Wednesdays and Thursdays. So I really appreciate everybody that tunes in and listens to us. I really do, and I'm glad we can entertain you and give you the guests that you want to hear and listen to crazy nutto people like this one on the phone.
Well, you think I'm a nut? I heard you reference earlier, a little cheeky reference. I heard you reference 2 Girls, 1 Cup.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bit of a cheeky reference, don't you think?
I thought it was very funny.
You know the reality behind that shoot, correct? How that was filmed?
Yeah, I don't really want to talk about it on live radio. So
those two girls had a choice. It was either the cup of shit or the beef. They made the correct choice.
Oh man, you are one interesting fellow. Let me tell you, man. And hopefully we can move forward with our bet in the next couple of days.
Dude, I've been ready. I've been telling you.
I know.
All right, so I cannot do it tomorrow.
I know.
I'm having a new roof put on the house.
Look at you. So. Look at this guy. He's getting a new roof. He got a new bed. I mean, this guy's racking in the dough.
Hey, man, you got to do it when you're in. Here where I live,
yes,
your insurance company will drop you if your roof is older than 20 years. So
really? Oh wow. Holy, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because of the hurricanes and stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah, so like you can't have like
how much is a roof? How much is a roof? A new roof over there in Florida?
It depends if you go like regular like plywood shingle kind of thing or if you go solar.
Yeah.
But the one I'm getting tomorrow is a little north of 30.
Wow. Okay. That's nice. Hey, listen, you put $30,000 on a roof. That's nice. You're not going cheap. That's for sure. Yeah, 100%.
No, none of it's cheap.
100%.
None of it's cheap.
Yeah.
It's the woes of being a homeowner.
I'm not a homeowner. I don't have right now. I just don't have the time to. Just keeping up to an apartment, and I have a big apartment. It's a lot of work. Cause it's so funny. I was talking to my landlord the other day, and by the way, we have Jeff, one of the fans that calls the show and just absolutely attacks and annoys me sometimes, but nevertheless, he's a good caller. I was talking to my landlord the other day, and we were talking about owning a house, and he says, you're probably better off never owning a house the way it is to take care of one. I mean, it's so costly throughout every single year with so many different things that you have to worry about. Pipes issues, sprinkler issues, there's so much that you have to worry about, as well as cesspool. Everything's expensive.
Well, that's why the ideal thing would be to get something
a condo
never lived in. No, never lived in, right? Like a house never lived in, like brand new construction. Like if you can do that, and then get out right before the problems happen, then it's just like a bank account, right? Because it's like you're selling the thing and let someone else pay for the roof or the plumbing or the whatever.
Yeah. How long does a roof last? 10 years?
No, like 20, 25 years.
Mm. How old is your house? How old is your house?
It was built in 2004. Okay. 2003, I think.
Wow, it's a fairly new house.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of a new neighborhood.
Mm.
How many buckets of coleslaw do you think Beeve would have to sell to get to 30 grand?
Well, I think the Beeve has no problems having the money and buying a house. Just so you know, I mean, the Beeve has never lived alone.
How many pounds of coleslaw do you think $30,000 is?
I don't know, but I've seen the Beeve win $50,000 on a box for the Super Bowl. So I think
because it's not knowledge or talent.
No, it's luck. I would say he's one of the luckiest people I've ever met. I
don't know. Have you seen what he looks like? I wouldn't call that lucky.
You're so bad, man. You're really bad. You really are not a nice person. Oh, man.
If you woke up like that, would you go, wow, I'm the luckiest guy in the world?
I love the Beef. I love him. He's a good guy. He's got a good heart. And I know you have your differences with him, but he's a good person. So
Yeah, no, I mean, I imagine all the good stuff must be on the inside because none of it's showing on the outside.
Jeff, just stay on. Let's go. So we have Bracket Wars tonight. With Bracket Wars, we have
Bracket Wars stinks. Come up with a new concept.
Oh, this is great. Cristiano Ronaldo versus Roger Federer, who's the number 6 seed. And then LeBron James is the number 9 seed versus the number 8 seed. We actually have a new segment coming out next week called A Righty Then. So that'll be fun. We're going to use that with our guests, and we're going to ask them 5 silly questions. And we're going to ask every single one of our guests those silly questions, and we're going to keep tabs on how these questions match up against each and every one of them, in different age groups, because they'll be silly questions, but each age group will probably answer the questions the same. So
if I were you, I would let Speedy read the questions.
Shut up, you idiot. All right, let's go, Speedy.
It's time for Bracket. It's time for Bracket Wars.
All right, we'll do the 11-6 one first. Number 11, Cristiano Ronaldo. Number 6, Roger Federer.
I'm not a Ronaldo fan. Okay, just so everybody knows. I know that actually there is one guy that is on our show or used to be on our network that is a huge Cristiano Ronaldo fan, and that is Lyle. He's a huge Ronaldo fan. Ronaldo has 512 goals, 140 assists in 21 professional seasons on 5 different teams. Ronaldo has won 5 Ballon d'Or trophies, is a 3-time FIFA Player of the Year, 3-time UEFA Player of the Year, and a 2-time Premier League Player of the Year. Ronaldo has won 7 championships in league play and 5 championships in league, 5 Champion League trophies. Ronaldo has 122 goals and 33 assists in 198 international games for Portugal. Ronaldo has 8 goals and 2 assists in 22 World Cup games and has never won a World Cup with Portugal. Honestly, you can argue that Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo are the 2 best players in the last 15 years. I would take Ronaldo offensively, goal scoring wise, I would take Ronaldo. Messi is a great goal scorer too, but all around game, I would take Messi. And that's why I question matching him up against Roger Federer, who I think is the greatest men's tennis player of all time. So, he's a great soccer player, one of the best in the world. He's probably made the most money out of any soccer player in the last 15 years with the endorsements that he gets. He was the face of GQ and all that other stuff. So the guy knows how to sell himself. There's no question. But he also knows how to do other things off the field as well.
Yeah, the off the field stuff definitely not ideal, but not relevant for this this particular matchup, because you're right, he is the best pure goal scorer we've seen probably since like the old days of soccer, those original greats.
Yeah.
But Messi, I think you're right. That's why I had him as a 7 seed. I had Ronaldo as an 11 seed because I think he is a more complete player all around. But I think Ronaldo has playing for all the different leagues, a lot of adjustment process too, and he still had good longevity amidst all that.
I will say this: he's not like Messi. He's not going to the MLS. I'm very surprised Messi.
No, he's going to
I
think Saudi Arabia or something.
Yeah, well, because he wants to play against the best. That's what he wants to do. And Messi's coming here because it's an easy paycheck in his way. He's making $70 million for the next 2 years, and he doesn't have to work as hard.
That's not why he's coming in.
He's coming here because he's going to Miami, and he's making $70 million in an MLS division. That's absolutely horrific.
He just turned down $1.6 billion from the Saudis.
Okay, so why did he? Why is he coming to Miami? Okay, because he's why?
Competition, and he doesn't have to play because
I just said that. I just said it's worse competition.
The paycheck. He turned down more money to come to Miami.
First of all, if I'm not mistaken, where he was going, American money is more. We were just talking about it yesterday.
3.75.
He's making more money here.
So 1.6 billion, even if you were to divide it by 3, he would still crush what he's getting here. It's not the paycheck.
He's making $70 million a year in the MLS in a league that's absolutely horrific. It's terrible. And he's going to score like 40, 50 goals in one season. Yeah, that's why. Anyways, Roger Federer, who I think is the greatest men's tennis player of all time. I don't know why. Rafael Nadal. I would say, honestly, it was Pete Sampras and Roger Federer. I mean, Pete Sampras dominated in the 90s, and I was an Andre Agassi fan, by the way. Federer has won 22 major championships, tied for the most all time. Federer has a career match record of 1,251 and 275, and has won 103 titles, second most in the Open era. Federer has been the number 1 player in the world for 310 weeks in his career, and at one point, 237 consecutive weeks. Federer became the first player to win 20 majors in his career and the oldest player to hold a number 1 ranking. Federer also won 8 titles in doubles and has also won a gold medal in doubles and 1 silver medal in singles. So all I could say about Roger Federer is he is the greatest tennis player in the men's division ever. It's not even close. Honestly, everybody keeps talking about him and Nadal and even Djokovic. Djokovic could, he still has a couple more years left. He could probably break Roger Federer's wins record for championships. Yeah. But just the dominance with Nadal in his prime and all these other guys in their prime, I think it's harder to do with Roger Federer. I keep messing their names. Roger Federer has done in his really 16 years of tennis than any one of these guys. So I'm going Roger Federer.
Yeah, Djokovic, I think, only has 2 more majors behind behind Federer right now.
But look who the second best player in the world is.
Yeah,
you know, guys that you never even heard of, and how many championships have they won?
Right, it's a lot more parity now with the rest of the tennis. A lot of young ones right now. Yeah, Jeff, what you're saying?
But that's also like kind of skewing the facts of the thing. Djokovic is only 2 Grand Slams behind Federer, but Djokovic has also been banned from the last 8 or 9 Grand Slam events because of the COVID issue. Whether you agree with it or you're not, that's the reality of the thing. And I can guarantee you, he wins 2 out of 9.
Okay, but we can't judge hypotheticals right now.
No, he's
right, but when he's having majors, just the opportunities taken away from him. I mean, I don't know. I think it's no knock to Federer. I think he's great. I also don't think he's the greatest ever.
Right now, he is. Who's better than him?
Who's better than him?
Novak Djokovic.
No, he's not. No, he's not. Look how many.
Go
look at his record against Roger Federer. Go look at his record.
I understand that Djokovic was young and Federer was in his prime. Later in his career, it completely turned on its head. Djokovic, when it's all said and done, is going to be the best tennis player.
All right, let's go. Matchup number 9 seed LeBron James versus the number 8 seed Bobby Orr. LeBron has 19 All-Star appearances, 19 all NBA appearances, 6 all defensive team appearances, has won 4 NBA championships and 1 final MVP for 4 of his titles. LeBron has an average of 28.9 points per game, 8.3 rebounds per game, and 6.8 assists per game in 20 years of the NBA. LeBron is one of only 4 players to win NBA championships with 3 different teams. LeBron has the most points in NBA history in both regular season and postseason. LeBron is the only player in NBA history to record at least 30,000 points, 10,000 rebounds, and 10,000 assists. And LeBron is the only player in NBA history to be in the top 5 all-time in points, top 10 all-time in assists, and top 10 and all-time in steals. LeBron, honestly, and I've said this many, many times, and I'll say it again, he's the second greatest basketball player to ever play this game. He will never be better than Michael Jordan. Anybody that puts him anywhere close to that is just ridiculous. I know LeBron wants to be compared to him, and he'll have all the records before he retires. He's also played in a league that's become more offensively bound. So it's a different game when Jordan played. So LeBron, that doesn't take away how talented LeBron is. That doesn't take away what LeBron has done. LeBron also has hurt the game and changed the game for the worst. So you have to look at those things too when you compare some of the greatest basketball players of all time on the list. So, but he is the second on my list. Greatest basketball players ever play the game.
Yeah, that's the only thing that really taints him is just the formation of these super teams that he had in Miami and all these other places, and really just changing the game where all these players have too much power, because statistically there's no flaw in his game, and just conceptually there's not a thing he can't do in the NBA.
The number 8 seed.
It's not even close to me. It's Bobby Orr. James, it's not even close. It's not even Bobby Orr.
All right, you could say go ahead.
Bobby Orr has a statue. Bobby Orr changed the game for the better. But by the way, he owns like all the records for defensemen and like goals and points and all that, or at least he did at one point. He did all of those things. And the numbers that you left out for LeBron James, while he does hold a lot of records there, he also holds the record for most tears cried when referees don't make a call. and he leads the league in flops every year. And I need help. Let's make super teams. And he's absolutely ruined the game of basketball. For all of the great things he's done 5 or 10 times worse things for ruining the game.
And James
is a bum.
And James Harden is coming for all those records too, Jeff.
And he has a terrible pizza place. That Blaze Pizza is trash. Bobby Orr owns one of the best golf clubs in Massachusetts, the Legends Golf Club. Terrific facility. Bobby Orr is the man. LeBron James, certified cunt.
Bobby Orr had 9 All-Star appearances, won 8 Norris trophies, 3 Hart trophies, 2 Art Ross trophies, and 2 Conn Smythe's trophies in his career. Orr had 270 goals, 645 assists, and 915 points in his career. As a defenseman in 12 NHL seasons, which is unbelievable. Orr averaged 1.39 points per game, most all-time by defenseman. Paul Coffey is the only other defenseman in NHL history with over a points per game mark. In 74 playoff games, Orr has 26 goals and 66 assists and 922 total points in his career and won 2 Stanley Cups. Orr is the only defenseman to have 9 hat tricks in his career and led the league in assists 5 times in his career. Orr is the only player to win a Stanley Cup and a Conn Smythe, a Hart, an Art Ross, and a Norris trophy in a single season. I honestly, Bobby Orr is the greatest all-around defenseman to ever play the game. And most people will tell you that. I never got a chance to see the guy play. Never did. I met him. I told you I bumped into him with the Bear, with the Bruins Bear at the Stanley Cup Finals. against St. Louis. I was backing up because somebody was moving something. I forget what they were moving. And I was moving back, and I didn't realize Bobby Orr and that bear was behind me. I bumped into Bobby Orr. I turned around, and he said, "Excuse me, fella," whatever he said to me. And I didn't even realize it was Bobby Orr until I turned around. It was really cool. I shook his hand. He says, hopefully you don't trip on anything. I think that's what he said to me. So he was very nice. Bobby Orr. I'll say Ray Bork was an ass. Oh,
really?
What an ass.
Ray Bork's one of the greatest people on the planet.
Oh, what an ass. Oh.
One of the greatest people on the planet. Owns a terrific restaurant.
Congratulations to him. I mean, he's
awesome.
His daughters are beautiful too, but that doesn't mean anything about who he is as a person.
He plays a lot of good golf too with his partner Reggie Lemlin. Him and Lemlin team up. They wreck people at Ipswich Country Club. Wreck them.
I'm sure they do. So, Speedy, who do you have?
I'm going to go with Bobby Orr on this one. I think he changed the game a lot more for defensemen. I think those records, a lot of them were peak values, just so insane for him to do. And again, you talk about the hockey and post-Original Six era, too. He was one of those first original stars and had a great lasting effect.
I'm going to go with LeBron James. And I know the answer would probably be Bobby Orr, but I think LeBron James, the way he has done it, the way he has dominated the NBA for such a long time, and he's probably going to have every single NBA record. He has all the postseason records. He'll have all the regular season records. I know what you're going to say. Who cares? But hey, to me, besides Michael Jordan, he's the greatest basketball player to ever play the game. Bobby Orr, as great as he was, and he could be the greatest defenseman of all time. Is he a top 10 player of all time? I don't think so. So I'm going to go with LeBron James, who is a top 3 player in NBA history. I'm going with LeBron.
I guess I'm the tiebreaker. Bobby Orr it is. Write him in, Speedy.
We're good. Actually, people could vote on Twitter.
Write him in so I can get more LeBron fan tears too. Wow, we love LeBron. Wow.
Yes, I'm sure LeBron's listening to that right now.
LeBron's fans are the only people that cry more than LeBron.
By the way, I'm not a LeBron fan, so just so you know.
And Bobby Orr was tough. You see Bobby Orr with his load management. Nope, drank a beer, right back out on
you could go back and forth with LeBron and Bobby Orr. The thing is that, and the way I look at it is, I don't want to be the same with everything that we both pick. But it's very close. You can go either or with LeBron or Bobby Orr. They're both dominant players.
Change the game for the better over ruining a game.
Okay, and again, that's your opinion.
One guy ruined the sport. One guy made it better.
Well, Steph Curry.
In my opinion, you also said LeBron.
Steph Curry, yes, I think Steph Curry has ruined the sport too.
Curry, don't bring Steph Curry up because that's just biased bullshit. He has nothing to do with this conversation. It's Bobby Orr and LeBron James, and that's it. Stop bringing up other people. Stay on target.
No, because you're saying one player destroyed the game. I think it's multiple players that destroyed the game. Kyrie Irving's another one that's destroying the game. He's using the social media.
He's destroying the game by going franchise to franchise and burning them all down.
That and opening his big fat mouth and throwing the NBA under the bus.
Right, but it's Bobby Orr and LeBron James. One of the two, one of them made the sport better, one of them made the sport worse.
I don't know how much you make it seem like LeBron has hurt the sport. The sport has made more money.
You don't think running at every referee with your arms in the air is actually an epidemic?
Why are NBA? Let me ask you a question, Jeff. Why are NBA players the number one players to be followed on social media?
It's just social media bullshit. It's some LA bullshit with OnlyFans models.
Well,
that has nothing to do with anything.
Well, that's not true.
They're not the number one players because worldwide, soccer players,
of course.
Actually, when it comes to social media, the basketball players have more followers than the soccer players. Just so you know, on social media, basketball leads all sports with social media and follows. Just so you know. Wow.
Messi just changed social media. How many go look at Inter Miami? Their thing.
Go look
how many
at
people just followed them in the last 24
Go look
hours?
at it. I don't know.
Oh yeah, it's probably an
Go look at it. Go look it up, Speedy. I don't know.
They had 17 followers last week. Now they have like 2 million.
I doubt they had 17 followers.
It's soccer in Miami. 17 people.
Yeah, that sounds like an accurate interpretation of Miami's attendance. Yeah, right now they have 457,700 followers.
Right. So soccer in Miami is like the Jets football in like the 2000s. The first 11 people to the stadium get to start.
You are an idiot. You know that?
Except in South Florida, it happens on a consistent basis. Where last weekend there was a series with the Marlins and the Athletics. I'm sure that guaranteed to have the lowest attendance of all time.
I think
because the A's are moving, the fans are doing the right thing and not showing up.
Well, yeah.
I think sports is just different now, man. I think it's just different. And again, Messi, if you look at his Twitter page, he has like a couple million. You know,
Messi just brought home the biggest trophy in the world single-handedly.
Dude, I love Messi.
Single-handedly beat them.
He's not my favorite player.
And you know what he didn't do? Run at the referee and cry every time.
Oh, I'm sure he's done that in the past.
Yes, he has.
You want to talk about NBA players doing it? Soccer players do it a lot.
They do it a lot. Yeah.
Or you think Messi's out there doing load management?
No, I think he tries.
No, they play it. They'll manage the minutes.
My favorite player in soccer, and I've been following him since he's come into the soccer world, is Neymar. I'm a big fan of his. I love what he does. The way he donates his time and his money to kids and children, and really the way he was raised as a kid. I mean, the guy is he has a good personality, and him and Messi are like best friends. They're like best.
Who are you taking in the UCL final?
Who's in the UCL final? I don't know.
Inter Milan and Man City.
That's a good game, right? That is a good game.
I don't know much about Inter Milan. I know Man City won the Premier League.
Right.
I say Man City.
Yeah, Man City's going to destroy him.
And Man City works with the Yankees. They play all the Man City games on the.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I have seen them like randomly scoping through. Yes.
So.
And Kevin De Bruyne is going to at least have one goal. I know Erling Haaland has been the goal machine for Man City, but I think Milan is going to really focus on him. I think it'll open up stuff for Kevin De Bruyne or Silva or Gundogan. Someone else is going to score besides Erling Haaland. I think I got Man City 3-1. I think.
Going with the exact scores, like our guy Hector.
Yeah, he has.
That's how I see it playing out. 3-1.
Hey, listen, the two great, world-renowned soccer organizations that are in the championship game.
Not really. Inter Milan had an easy path. They're kind of
bums. Yeah, but Inter Milan, they've been there before, have they not? They've been.
Yeah,
there
they have, but they're bums. Man City's taken down all the big teams on their way in, all of them. And they just destroyed Real Madrid, who leads the world in Champions League victories.
Yeah,
they just destroyed them. Wasn't even close.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure whoever is a soccer fan is going to enjoy Man City. So, Man City,
except for Lyle, who's a Man United fan.
Yes, he is. He was just there, actually.
Yeah, I know.
He was in England, and he went to a game, so he was very excited about that.
Man United's got a great striker themselves. A really great striker in Marcus Rashford.
Yes.
Look at you. Follow your soccer. Isn't that great?
Buddy, you know I've been playing.
I know.
Year, right?
Yeah, I know. You're a big soccer guy, and you bet on soccer more than anything. What happened?
And I'm going to become a huge Luton Town fan this year. Huge Luton Town fan.
Why is that?
Dude, you need to, please God, go and look up Luton Town Stadium. Please, seriously, you got to go and do it, because there's a high school in Allen, Texas, right? Mm-hmm. They have a high school football stadium that holds 30,000 people.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Right? Luton Town, their capacity for their stadium, 9,999. And they're in the Premier League. Dude, the walls of their stadium share a wall with all the houses in the neighborhood.
Wow. Now, how often are they actually in the Premier League? Because I know they do relegation with that. Like,
yeah, they just got promoted.
Okay,
they just got promoted. All right, hold on. Here, I'll even send it to you. All right, look at your phone, Earl.
Still with this Earl. My name is Errol, you idiot.
Jeff Snug used one of your sayings. Inter Milan is going to get body bagged.
100% they are.
Looks like also says Luton makes Wrigley look spacious. Lyle is probably salty about Man U losing the FA Cup. And yep, Kevin De Bruyne plus 300 anytime goal scorer.
Yeah, and Gundogan is plus 300 also.
It's interesting. It's interesting how they built the stadium around all the Sasses.
Do you see how close all of that sort of stuff is? It's like it's part of the village. Like it's literally like a scene out of Ted Lasso.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's incredible.
I never got a chance to watch that show. I'm going to have the opportunity in the next couple of weeks to watch Ted Lasso. I know it's going on to the second season, if I'm not mistaken.
It's actually the third season just ended.
The
series
third
is over.
The third season?
Yeah. You've been talking to the beef too much.
Right.
You need to get out of the little beef hole and join society.
My parents do love that show. I saw the first, I think, 3 episodes of it.
I definitely.
And if your parents love Ted Lasso, Speedy, if your parents love Ted Lasso, have them also watch Shrinking.
Okay.
Yeah, mention Shrinking to them because it's from the same writers on the same platform, Apple TV.
All right.
Jeff, thank you.
Always a pleasure, gentlemen. It's so terrific that you're actually getting into real football.
Jeff. Interesting guy. He does give me a headache. He definitely does. I mean, he knows his soccer, but my God. It was a great show. It really was. Thank you to Brett Siegel. He was fantastic from ClutchPoints National NBA Insider. He is fantastic. Alex Mitchell from New York Post. He's always fun to come on the show, and he loves this show. So I'm actually going to make time and go out to Queens whenever I go out to Queens. Maybe when we go out to Queens. How about this? Maybe we ask Alex. Maybe Alex wants to come with us next week to Columbia and hang out with us, and he could write about it. Maybe we'll bring Alex out there. Let's talk to Alex. Maybe he'll write something for the New York Post. So reach out to Alex and get me Alex's number so we can speak off air. So that'll be fun, but it'll be fun. We're going to be doing our show next week on Tuesday and Thursday, because on Wednesday we're doing a play-by-play for Columbia University for the Long Island Elite organization, as we're going to be there for a couple hours. So we're very excited about that. I know Speedy's very excited about that. But thank you to all the fans around the country for tuning into us. I know we get these crazy callers like Jeff who get me tuned up and crazy, but you know what? It's part of the show. And we really appreciate Jeff calling the show and being the personality that he is. I'm not going to hate on somebody that has his own opinions, even though some of it is just absolutely outrageous. But thank you to Brett Siegel and Alex Mitchell. Thank you to all our guests throughout the week. It was great yesterday having Eric on and Tim Roy, who both were fantastic. So thank you to everybody, all the guests that come on our show, and thank you to all the fans around the country that tune in. Keep sending the emails. I'll answer the emails. Remember, you can go to the Worldwide Sports Radio at Yahoo. It's at Yahoo. So you can find it on the website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com, and I'll answer all your questions and whatever craziness that you want to argue with me or whatever. I don't care what you guys send me. I'll answer all your questions, good or bad. Listen to the Weekend Crunch. We are live on Saturday at 7 p.m. No more Islanders, no problem, as we are the only sports radio show that airs here on Long Island. So it'll be at 7 p.m. If you're not living here on Long Island and you want to tune in, go to iHeartRadio, LI News Radio, and you can hear it at 7 o'clock on Saturday. All right, that's it. We'll be back next week on Tuesday. Speedy, we have anybody yet?
Not Tuesday. Thursday, we do have somebody, a longtime offensive line coach, coached over 40 years, including for the Giants and the Jets. Jim McNally is his name.
I remember Jim.
Yep. He wasn't the actual offensive line coach for the Jets, but he was a consultant. He was for the Giants in the early 2000s.
I remember Jim McNally. So, yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be cool. And I'm sure we'll have guests moving forward. Speedy gets hit up at least a couple of times over the weekend, and we'll have everything set up for next week's show. We're very excited, as always, for the 495 opportunity at Columbia University. Thank you to Ben. We will be there. It'll be a nice ride into the city, but it'll be fun. But we'll be back next week, starting Tuesday, 7 p.m. Good night, everybody.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
This is Mario Andretti. You know me as a race car driver,